for that social media conversation primarily on Twitter. Just hit us at twitter.com. If you follow me on twitter.com, feel free to direct message me or DM me, as they say. And some of you do actually from time to time. I get some of your DMs, so please feel free to do that as well. Phone lines are open first, by the way, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 as we bring on All Voting is Local's Pennsylvania State Director, Scott Seaborg. Scott Seaborg, Pennsylvania Director for All Voting is Local. If you have questions for him about what voting is going to look like or what it might look like come this general election as we head into, I'm calling it election month. I don't want to say heading into November, really heading into September, October, because it's going to be a long election. There have been some recent developments. The Trump campaign, along with the Republican National Committee, suing a number of states for what they're calling or what they are charging is voter fraud in the administration of vote by mail. So we know that those charges are fallacious because vote by mail actually worked not too bad, actually worked pretty well, particularly in states like Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania being one of those states that is being sued currently by the Trump campaign. They want to take away vote by mail, essentially. And so Scott Seaborg here to talk with us about that lawsuit, what that means, and also what vote by mail looked like in Pennsylvania on the June 2nd primary. Scott, how are you doing? Can you hear us?
Absolutely. Charles, thank you so much for having me today. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
All right. Hanging in there, man. Keeping safe. So hope you're keeping safe as well. I suspect you are. You sound well. Once again, too, if you're just now tuning in, we are talking with Scott Seaborg, Pennsylvania State Director for All Voting is Local. Go to votingislocal.org. And if you have questions about voting this year, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. So, Scott, explain this recent lawsuit by the Trump campaign in conjunction with the Republican National Committee. That's the national apparatus for the Republican Party. What's the problem here? What are they finding as being a problem with vote by mail?
So it's a few things. The suit that was filed, I think, speaks to do three things. One, they want to sort of limit and take away elements of how we operate our mail-in ballot and absentee ballot system in Pennsylvania. They want to make sure that if any ballot is damaged in the mail or if someone fails to put it in the secrecy envelope, that ballot will not be able to be counted. And the third thing is loosening restrictions on poll watchers. Now, we know that asserting that the Commonwealth should ban drop boxes, which is essentially what they're saying. They're saying you should only be able to drop your mail ballot off at the Board of Elections. There's usually only one Board of Elections per county. And so instead of, really meeting voters where they are in this moment where we have to think a lot about the pandemic, we have to think about exposure to ourselves and our families, this effort is seeking to take away our ability to drop our vote by mail ballots in a secure drop box in our community. And we know that's just an effort to silence voters.
What's the problem with, did they identify specific problems in this lawsuit with the drop boxes? Like, how are they not secure? Did we see specific instances or examples that were outlined in the lawsuit showing that there were discrepancies in the June 2nd primary vote? There were instances or moments where ballot security was less than optimal, where ballots were lost, where ballots were fake ballots or fake ballots were counted or fraud took place?
You would think so. And the item that they point to, or the item that this lawsuit points to, is one example they use is the Committee of 70 program to have a secure Dropbox location in one of their Committee of 70 vans that was sort of had election officials there to make sure that those ballots got in securely. And this was a program set up by the commissioners of Philadelphia to literally have a drop box inside of a van and be able to drive to locations like, you know, places where elderly voters are at, places where, you know, voters that have mobility issues and aren't able to, you know, do stairs and things along those lines are at, and people like myself with compromised immune systems, right? Like I've got an autoimmune condition, and that means that I'm more at risk. And so what they're trying to say is whatever, you know, your local county is doing, and it's not just Philadelphia, it's all 67 counties, they're saying, look, you have this law, and it was passed, you know, by partisan in the state legislature, and it allows counties the autonomy to be able to operate elections safely and securely, and they can use drop boxes if they want, right? And so the law doesn't say you have to use drop boxes. It says, yeah, that's an important and secure way to collect these ballots. And this lawsuit's basically coming in and saying, we want to silence voters that want to use drop boxes. And I know in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, we will not be silenced in person or at the polls. We will not be silenced while we thoughtfully vote our ballots this fall, and we're definitely not going to be silenced by a lawsuit intent on taking away the Commonwealth's freedom, county by county, by eliminating common sense reforms. This really is just a thing we view as a sham and really meant to silence Pennsylvania voters.
What county received the most focus in this lawsuit, or was there a county, a specific county that received more focus in this lawsuit? Scott, was it Philadelphia getting named the most in this lawsuit? Do we know, or you know, it's just kind of like trying to make it seem like, and the reason I'm asking that question is to sort of get a sense of what's frightening them the most, because I feel like this lawsuit is out of fear. It's been filed out of fear. The June 2nd primary, or at least the mail-in ballot function of the June 2nd primary, worked a lot better than a lot of us anticipated, right? We even saw higher voter turnout in Philadelphia for that primary. I remember folks even within, you know, folks who were rather influential in voter mobilization circles in Philadelphia, I remember having multiple conversations where people were predicting, yeah, it's probably going to be 10 to 15% turnout with pandemic and then these protests, and it ended up getting like 33% turnout. That's not, it's still, it could have been higher. I wish it was higher, but that was way better than what everyone had anticipated or planned on. So this is coming out of fear. Was there a lot of focus on Philadelphia?
Yeah, and, you know, I will say I am not a lawyer.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
You know, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that the items sort of called out in Philadelphia are the main focus of sort of curtailing and taking away our ability to safely and securely run elections as our county commissioners see fit. And you're absolutely right. You know, we had a 20 times increase in the vote by mail balloting from the 2016 primary to this primary that we just had on June 2nd. And, you know, it's a thing to celebrate, because it means that the bipartisan law, Act 77, that Republicans and Democrats came together to pass, the biggest reform in 80 years on elections in Pennsylvania, was really successful, right? I think the volume that we saw was a little bit overwhelming, and I know that county election officials and state election officials are busy making plans and sort of, you know, looking at what the experience was like for voters and how we can sort of do it better. And, you know, really is amazing, 2 million ballot requests, and I think that portends a lot more people using this secure, safe, and, you know, decades-long established tool now that we've sort of expanded its ability to be used by voters and made sure that it's really secure.
Yeah, that really portends for things come October, November, right? You know, basically, Trump campaign, also the RNC supporting the Trump campaign, saying that this is an existential threat to them in the election, that if it could work this well, and that was just the primary, and then that was something that was pretty much like piecemeal together on the fly within a matter of weeks, right? If not months. Imagine how it will work once we get into into general election phase. That's a direct and potentially fatal hit fatal electoral hit to the Trump campaign and to his reelection prospects. And also, it pretends for rather grave consequences for the Senate as well, or as far as Republican chances in the Senate as well. Let me ask you, Scott, and also, once again, if folks are just now listening in, we're talking with Scott Seaborg, Pennsylvania Director of All Voting is Local. Go to votingislocal.org for more information. Let me ask you, how much of a role does media play in this? Because I had a bit of an exchange with a Philadelphia Inquirer reporter. I did not like, and you don't have to agree or disagree on this, but I really did not like the headline the next day after ballots were counted in the Pennsylvania primary. No, it wasn't the next day. It was maybe a week or two later. There's this June 16th article in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And then people wonder, the Inquirer wonders why people are badgering them or harassing them about bias within the newsroom. But there was this headline about voter fraud. And they were making a big deal, and they expended a lot of copy. I mean, lots of words. It was like a 2,000 word piece on 40 mail-in ballots out of 144,000. I'm going to keep harping on this. 144,000 mail-in ballots casted in Philadelphia. Philadelphia Inquirer finds time in a city with 30% poverty, in a city with an air pollution danger or threat looming, and all sorts of other problems that I could write 2,000 words on in Philadelphia. 40 ballots that were counted as double votes. And it was even unintentional. And then they made a big deal out. That's like 0.03% of 144,000 ballots cast in Philadelphia County. And so now, and to my understanding, I looked at a little bit of that lawsuit. They referenced that article in June 16th in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So it's a wonder why people are buying Philadelphia Inquirer newspapers. But anyway, before I go off on a rant or a tangent, because I just think that adds to the problem when media sensationalizes small issues like that, things that aren't urgent, that aren't alarming. It's not even a fraction of. It was like this minuscule 40 ballot count where it was a technical glitch. Doesn't that add to the problem?
I have to agree with you. And the issue, I think, that is on a lot of voters' minds is that they're hearing in the media from different personalities that maybe they shouldn't trust this vote by mail tool. And I think that adds to the uncertainty that voters have.
Right.
We know that vote by mail is a tool that's been successfully used across the country for decades. And we also know that our election officials in every county are intent on doing the absolute best job they can to make sure that all voters' voices are heard and represented as they cast their ballots, but also to prevent any type of miscounting, double counting, or, as you said, sort of a technical glitch, right? Here's the thing that stands out to me is that, so we know about this. They did the counting, and they were able to sort of identify this technical glitch and say, hey, here's the 40 ballots that, needed to not count. And what I do know about sort of in-person provisional balloting as well as vote-by-mail balloting is that during the reconcile analysis and auditing process that happens after every single election, they're interested in finding these types of things if they exist. And so we know that vote-by-mail has been expanded in Pennsylvania. We know that it's incredibly secure. And we also know that election officials are dealing with unprecedented challenges having to do with COVID-19. And so is it a concern of mine and of all voting as local that we don't see inconsistencies and bad behavior and bad actors sort of working to influence our elections? Absolutely. And should that be the focus right now? It's always the focus to keep us safe. It's always the focus to avoid shenanigans. But we need to make this general election happen. And I think really the media would be better served potentially by talking through what changes need to happen in the sort of basic, boring election administration previously exposed to COVID-19, that we understand if there are going to be polling place changes, we broadcast that out to communities so we give voters the chance to get to their polling places safely and in a way that they're able to do that. And I think, focusing just on, whatever 0.003% of those ballots is probably not the best use of their sort of journalistic time, and we can also see that it's been included in this suit, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate. And it's something I'm going to continue to harp on and highlight, so that media outlets like Philadelphia Inquirer and others, in the name of like balanced journalism, are not doing that because it's not. It's journalistic malfeasance is what it is, and honestly, I was quite disappointed when I saw it, because I knew as soon as I saw it was the June 16th piece, and I told the reporter Jonathan Lai, who he responded back to me on Twitter. I'm like, they are going to use this, and at the time he dismissed it. He dismissed my concerns as now. And I came back at him yesterday. I'm like, this is what I was talking about. See, he's like, yeah, they did cite it. I'm like, yeah, it's like, and now, like, for what? Like, what was the purpose? Like, were you trying to get the Pulitzer with it? I don't get it. So, and it's just not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone's cause, least of all Pennsylvania voters, or any voter for that matter. We've been talking with Scott Seaborg. He is Pennsylvania director for All Voting is Local. Go to votingislocal.org. Also at Scott Seaborg on Twitter as well, where he's engaged, and he's been joining us here on Reality Check. Scott, thanks for your time. Really appreciate this. So, and really appreciate these. Real quick, Scott, before I let you go, I'm looking at an election month, not an election day. So when do you think vote by mail, what's like the date that vote by mail is activated in Pennsylvania, so people are not rushing to the polls at the last minute on November 3rd? Like, what's that date that we need to keep in mind when everything starts, when the switch is flipped on?
So I believe that Act 77 says about 50 days, and my understanding is that the Department of State is working diligently to try and get that available a little sooner. And so as soon as I have that information, I am going to connect with you, let you know what that date is, and hopefully, spread the word. And I agree with you. It's the whole election season we're having here. I think, folks should enjoy casting their ballot and really get out there and make their voice heard.
Yeah, that would be real good. Just to let us know. I think we need to be real clear on that date when the green light comes on, right? I think everyone wants to know that date. So then we start on that date. That's what we highlight. That's what we promote. That's what we put, PSAs out about. What we start the GOTV with is that date, that major date is that date, like October something, and so we can like officially start the races and officially say this is election month. Don't just wait till the last minute on November 3rd. Like, that's the worst thing that it's potentially one of the worst things that can happen is this big, massive rush or crunch of people trying to go to limited polling locations when they had all month to use vote by mail and to get all ballots in, and so we can get this thing done. So, Scott, thanks for your work. Really appreciate this. We'll be in touch with you. Thanks again, Scott Seaborg.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Take care. All right, let's take a break. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about the crisis in nursing homes, the healthcare crisis, the COVID-19 crisis that's unfolding in nursing homes. We're going to be talking with AARP's Bill Johnston Walsh about that. He's the Pennsylvania State Director for AARP. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com. Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Holistic health information every weekend with Dr. Paul. Saturdays during the Holistic Hour at 9 a.m. and Sundays during the Green Hour at 3 p.m. right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Streaming live at wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app. wordradio.com.
Do you need health insurance for your children? The Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, provides quality, affordable health insurance for Pennsylvania kids. CHIP ensures that kids can go to the doctor, receive health screenings and vaccines, and get what they need to live a healthy childhood. Families can be covered by CHIP no matter how much money they make. If you've experienced a recent change in employment or income, CHIP may be a good option for your family. Visit chipcoverspakids.com to apply or learn more.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word TV, Word app. We're now bringing on Bill Johnston Walsh. He is Pennsylvania State Director for the AARP. Go to aarp.org for more information. Bill, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well this morning. How are you?
All right, good. So how bad is the situation right now in nursing homes? Particularly when you look at Pennsylvania, and I know that this is something that's a crisis that's striking nursing homes nationwide, but as we see the pandemic taking hold, we see pandemic cases actually surging back up in the negative direction. How severe has this crisis been in nursing homes? Are we talking about this enough?
Yeah, it's been very severe. We're very concerned at AARP. There's roughly 700 nursing homes in Pennsylvania with anywhere at any given time between 80 and 100,000 residents. And the COVID cases in those nursing homes are over 20,000 to date. And at the same time, there's the COVID deaths in those nursing homes is a little over 4,000. That's almost 70% of the total cases of deaths in the Commonwealth. So yeah, at AARP we're very concerned about what's going on and what the state and the federal government are doing to help nursing homes with the residents and their staff.
Wow. So altogether, you were saying once again, it's how many total people? So we have 700 nursing homes, close to 100,000 residents served.
Yeah, anywhere between 80 and 100,000 residents. It's usually in between that structure there at any given time. And the COVID-19 cases in those nursing homes to date have been over 20,000.
Wow, that's like 20%, basically 20% of the nursing home population in the state of Pennsylvania. That's alarming.
It's very alarming.
Yeah, it's very. And what sort of recourse do nursing home residents have in a situation like this? Is that something that, as we've gotten better, at least grasping how severe this crisis is, or the magnitude of what's happening inside nursing homes, our nursing home residents, our seniors who rely on nursing homes, do they have much recourse, much legal or policy recourse when they're seeing COVID-19 spread throughout these nursing homes like this?
Yeah, so basically the nursing home residents, we're fighting on their behalf at AARP. So we're making sure that there's regular testing that's being done. Now, the devil's in the details on that. We fought to get this with the governor and the state legislature. And what we're finding is that the governor has put down this baseline of July 24th to have all the nursing homes in the Commonwealth be tested as the baseline testing. What we found out is that there are some nursing homes that have been doing testing on a regular basis, weekly, throughout the Commonwealth. There's some that did once and done and haven't been testing on a regular basis. And then there's some that just don't have the capacity, the test or the staff to do it, so they haven't tested at all. So we're very concerned about that. The other piece that really can protect the residents is the PPE, the masks, the gowns, the gloves that are needed. What we're finding out is that there have been some that have been given out throughout the Commonwealth, and some places have enough masks, for example, but there's a shortage of gowns. There's other places in the Commonwealth that have plenty of gowns, but they don't have masks or gloves. So what we're trying to do at AARP is really just trying to work with both at the federal and state level to make sure that there's enough resources down so we can start getting that in there.
Hey, I'm also curious too. Do nursing homes, at least in Pennsylvania, from what you're saying, Bill, do they have the capacity for COVID-19 treatment? Once they've identified an infected patient, do they have the capacity? So we talked about PPEs or personal protective gear equipment. What about treatment capacity? What about quarantine capacity? What's sort of the protocol if a nursing home resident is found to be infected with COVID-19?
So what we're hearing and what we've been working with the nursing home industry is that they do. There are places around the Commonwealth, and the nursing homes. I have to give a shout out to the nursing homes. They've been doing the best they can during this pandemic.
Okay.
We've never had anything like this recently, but the nursing homes have, for the most part. There are some that are not up to par, but for the most part, what they've been doing is if they found a COVID case, they've been isolating that person in an area for 14 days to make sure that the spread is taken care of. That has been working, but as you said earlier, the cases are starting to go back up, and our concern is when these nursing homes allow people to start coming back in for visitation, those rates are going to be just going up again, and we're finding out the nursing homes is the hotbed, and we're really concerned about that.
Is there like some sort of philosophical or political battle over visitations the same way we're seeing that unfold or being hashed out over mask, like, to wear a mask or not, visitation, obviously that's a big problem for emotionally for a lot of family members to not have that kind of visitation connection or have that direct connection with an elder family member through a time like this, but it's something people have to do. And so are we finding the same thing? Like there's just that your nursing homes find themselves in the middle of these very caustic, emotionally tinged political battles about whether or not to allow visitation?
I would agree with you that it's definitely very emotional. It hasn't gone to that political stage yet, the way the PPE have done in some of the testing pieces. What we've been finding out is that since February, when the nursing homes in the Commonwealth have gone down on lockdown, people have been able to. At that point, they were able to even come up to the windows and at least see their loved ones. There are families that have not seen their loved ones since February, and we're now going into, and we're in July. It's just been, we understand the safety aspect of it. We understand that the families need to be kept in touch. What we're hearing is that there's some facilities around the state that families are very frustrated. They have not been able to talk to their loved ones. The nursing homes are some of them are overwhelmed. There's not enough equipment in there, whether it be iPads or phones. That usually what we're finding is that there's some places that have one phone per floor, and they're saying, no, I'm sorry, we need that for our day-to-day work, and we can't have members doing that. What AARP did just last month is we worked with the governor, and we partnered in a way to be able to get some of these devices into nursing homes. Now, as I mentioned, there's 700 nursing homes in PA. We were only able to get into about 50 or 60 of them to be able to give some phones and some iPads so that family members can start to have these conversations. But you're right, as we start opening up, and we're all in the green phase now for the most part in Pennsylvania, and our concern is that what's going to happen when we start letting people back in if the testing's not in place, if we don't have the protective gear in place that's needed to protect both residents and staff. It's something that we need to start preparing for right now as we go into the fall and the possibility of another resurgence.
Yeah. Are you right now? We getting actually? There's someone who's listening in, and they just tagged us via Twitter, Bill, at NorCGene on Twitter, tagged us at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. Are they doing contact tracing? She asked. Since employees are the ones who come and go every day, so is contact tracing happening with employees, Bill?
Yeah, that I do not know. I know there's discussion about that. I know that it's happening in some other states, but I just don't know what's happening with regards to that in nursing home staff right now. It's something that your listener's right. It's something that there is discussion about, but we don't know what's going on there. Because as you know, you're right. As staff members go back into the community, dealing with their families, their friends, some nursing homes are testing people with seeing if they have a fever coming back in. If they do, they send them home. But that opens up the whole new Pandora's box with staffing levels, because we know that there's some concerns about staffing levels that are happening in nursing homes right now. And when you start having people calling out sick or getting COVID, there's less people working with the residents. So
Yeah,
Tough.
yeah, no, that becomes a big problem. No, it's yeah, and thanks for that too, that question, Nora. What about what elected officials or what policymakers can do? It seems to me one policy, I mean, one direction that the Wolf administration, for example, could go in is just like, especially when we're seeing cases back on the rise, we're not out of the woods yet. In fact, in Philadelphia, they've had to phase back their green phase, or sort of pull back on their green phase reopening, or certain aspects of it. So, do we need to make it mandatory for people not to conduct physical visitation? Does the state, can the state step in and say, hey, you know what, we're not permitting across the board, universally applied to all 700 nursing homes throughout the Commonwealth, no physical visitations until further notice?
Yeah. Technically, the governor could put that order in place, but what we're seeing is that social isolation in some places could be just as bad as the COVID virus. People are very depressed in these facilities. So what AARP would like to see is we would like to see that the nursing home industry, the state, and the federal government start working. We know there's going to be another stimulus package. We want the federal government to be able to focus that stimulus package on nursing homes, working with governors, making sure that we have the testing, we have the PPE, and the visitations, whether they be virtual or in person, making sure that we have what's in place so they can be safe. We know that Senator Casey, for example, has been working on a bipartisan bill with Senator Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana, to get virtual visitations equipment down to the states. And that would be great. And AARP is all for that, and we're pushing that. The bottom line here is that we need to make sure these facilities are as safe as possible, and how we do that. And if we need to take some more time to think about how we will have safe visits, we need to do that. We need to take this slow, because as you pointed out, the bottom line here is that these cases are starting to go back up in Pennsylvania, just like in other parts of the country.
Yeah, and I think going virtual too, or trying to figure out a way to come up with a framework for virtual visitation. I mean, even if that means, if like in my head, I'm thinking, for example, just throwing this out here, like find a pot of $1 million. I don't know if the AARP has access to that, or if the government can find that, even though it's strapped for budgets, or find some foundation that's concerned about the elder care crisis as pandemic takes hold. Find $1 million. You got 700 nursing homes in the state or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Every nursing home gets 3 iPads. You can get iPads for $300 to $400 each now. You can find even refurbished iPads for that much. And with $1 million, you can get 3 iPads per nursing home. So, and then put it on some sort of visitation calendar for use of those iPads for staff to take them. Hence your visitation problem kind of solved, because you got a virtual visitation framework that's set up, while at the same time you're addressing that issue of depression from being isolated, but you're also maintaining physical distance. You're not having family members who may be asymptomatic or even lightly or mildly symptomatic bringing the virus into the nursing home to infect their family members and others. So I'm just riffing here, but I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, the wonders just $1 million could do for 700 nursing homes in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely. From your mouth to the governor's ears, hopefully.
You're right.
At AARP, we've been pushing this. There's been $500 million that's been allocated so far through the CARES Act that came down to the state. The legislature and the governor sent that out to the nursing homes. We know that the nursing home industry is trying to catch up with regards to everything that they've been doing and putting out expense-wise and resources up to this point. But you're right, though, that out of that $500 million, I don't think it's all been spent. And I know there's still some CARE dollars left over. So to us, $1 million or a couple $1 million to be able to do this, I think is well worth it for the lives of the residents and their families, definitely.
Hey, one of the things we haven't discussed, Bill, or it's not being talked enough during this pandemic, we were having issues with nursing homes before, right? In terms of not all nursing homes, but I'm just saying there's always been this issue, this lingering issue of mismanagement, and staff malfeasance in nursing homes. Every now and then cases of abuse of residents or patients in nursing homes. So, and I know that AARP, that you guys have some issues with, or a proposal put on the table by the nursing or the residential care lobby granting immunity to nursing home staff during this pandemic. You're a bit resistant towards that. Talk a bit about that, because we don't talk enough about, hey, we did have problems with nursing homes before pandemic took hold in terms of how residents were treated.
Yeah. I just want to state that there are some really good nursing homes out there, and just like anything else, there's some bad players, but for the most part, nursing homes have been doing a good job and are part of the spectrum of long-term care in the Commonwealth. But with regards to the immunity issue, yeah, AARP believes that nursing homes should remain responsible for the health and safety of the residents. We know that the governor is against immunity for nursing facilities and within the state. And we believe that there are some nursing homes, not all, a majority are doing the right thing, but there are some that need to be held accountable for the harm and neglect of some of their residents. The other piece is that we try to let many of our 1.8 million members and their families know that there is the Pennsylvania Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. And that really is a program where individuals can go into a facility, have a conversation, see what's going on, protecting the rights of the most vulnerable. And I do have that number. It's 717-783-8975 is the number for the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. And you have some really good programs down there in the Philadelphia area as well.
Okay, great. Long-term care ombudsman program. I'll definitely put that out, especially after this break. We have to go to break, actually, too, Bill. It's been great having you. We've been talking with Bill Johnston-Walsh. He is Pennsylvania State Director for AARP. Go to aarp.org for more information. Bill, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your work.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open. Phone lines are wide open as we even head into the 11 o'clock hour. A little bit later on in the 11 o'clock hour, we have G.S. Potter coming up with us next. Phone lines will be open then as well when we talk to her. So we've got open phone lines between now all throughout the 11 o'clock hour, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 if you'd like to call in and chew on the fat a little bit. Also ask questions about some of what we've discussed this morning in the 10 o'clock hour. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Would you like to know how to grow enough food to feed your family for a year? Then listen very carefully. Darrell Addison, an African-American inventor, created an organic growing system called Torpedo Pot. Torpedo Pot is affordable, easy to set up, and fully automated. Torpedo Pot will grow your food for you. Visit torpedopot.com or call 1-215-290-9013.
Support independent black media and join the Forward movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. We are back, 215-634-8065. Also 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are wide open as we head into the 11 o'clock hour. So 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Nikki Maxwell on Facebook Live commenting on our last conversation that we just had with Bill Johnston Walsh at AARP Pennsylvania about the elder care nursing home crisis during pandemic. That's exactly right. She says the only people going in and out of these facilities are the staff. These are the ones that should be tested regularly and should be treated as if they have it as a protocol to be proactive. So, and I did find that kind of interesting that even Bill Johnston Walsh couldn't really completely answer that question as to no fault of his own, but even he had trouble knowing whether or not that's something that's universal and that's standard contact tracing. And that's a good question from Nora C. Jean at Nora C. Jean on Twitter. That's a very good question. Is there universal or mandatory contact tracing that's happening in Pennsylvania nursing homes? You would think that that'd be a no-brainer, right? So that's like the low-hanging fruit. Like, hey, let's just put contact tracing into place, but it's not happening. I mean, just some certain things when I think about that issue, it's just certain things to me seem like no-brainers. And it's amazing how sometimes we take crises or issues and we have like solutions that are right there. But I don't know, sometimes people feel like because the solution is too simple, it's too good to be true. And so they make a mountain out of a molehill, as my grandmother used to, just famously say. And it's not that deep. Like it's easy, it's simple. He's talking about a $500 million investment where that's been set aside, $500 million that's been set aside in Pennsylvania to help augment elder care or nursing home facility services during pandemic. And he's saying that not all 500 million or $500 million of the dollars have been spent. Even though that there is an acknowledgement that we have there, that's a crisis. You have 20%. I mean, you heard it from Bill Johnston Walsh at AARP, 20%, nearly a quarter of the entire residential home or elder care population or nursing home population in the Commonwealth of PA is infected with COVID-19. It's 20,000 out of nearly 100,000 people who are currently in some sort of residential care facility or nursing home facility in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. 20%. That is astounding. So you would think that state officials, if they have a fairly quick fix or plug and play, easy, low-hanging fruit, and inexpensive, because I understand everyone's budgets are tight, but inexpensive way to handle certain aspects or elements of that crisis, including visitation, for example, because you have a lot of family members who are going to have issues with not having visitation rights or visitation privileges to their loved ones, particularly at a time like this. And I know some people personally, I'm not in that position personally, but I know some people personally and some family members who have not seen loved ones for months, since this thing started. But the virtual visitation helps in a big way, whether that's by Skype or by Zoom. It's like people creating this technology and they're forcing this technology down our throat. And then when this pandemic arrives, this is the moment that this kind of technology that y'all have been forcing down our throats like for years now, this is the moment that this kind of technology was built for. Now people suddenly don't want to use the technology, don't know how to use the technology, don't have the money to spend on the technology. Now suddenly it's like it's such a problem using this technology, this invasive, pervasive, ubiquitous, self-gratification, narcissistic technology that people have been pumping out and killing our privacy, killing our peace of mind, and killing our environment with for years. The least y'all can do out there is now use the technology to its fullest potential during a moment like this. And that's this moment when you think about the nursing home or the elder care facility crisis, people are having a problem. And I get it. Like, I'd feel the same way too. Like, I'm like, when are we going to visit grandmama? When we going to visit grandpa? When we going to be able to see auntie and uncle in a nursing home facility? You know, you can't because there's this pandemic. But the best way to make that connection, right? It's just something as simple as an iPad, and you don't even have to spend. I see like refurbished, brand new, pretty much like MacBooks and iPads online all the time. Like I just got my daughter like a refurbished MacBook that was like just a couple of years old and it's like brand new. You can find that stuff online. You don't have to spend like the whole $600, $700 on an iPad if that's what you want to get. And you don't even need to get an iPad. You know, get something as simple as, I don't know, a $150 Kindle. You know, make sure people like get connected where they can get on Skype, get on Zoom or whatever, or FaceTime and get that done. You know, that's $1 million. I just kind of took that out my hat just off a riff. $1 million. Get like virtual visitation set up. That's low hanging fruit. So the technology is there and available and accessible. But, you know, people are still having issues as far as more and more people getting sick. And then contact tracing is another one of those simple issues. It's like, especially if you have staff going in and out of these facilities, you would think that that's like, okay, you know what, that's mandatory. You would think that the governor and the state legislature would be like, you know what, we don't want any more old people getting sick. We don't want any more people dying in Pennsylvania. We need to make sure that we're keeping this thing under control and we're tracking how people are going in and out and whether or not they're asymptomatic. So like, boom, mandatory contact tracing testing in all nursing home facilities, all 700. Like, you know, and that's probably like a couple of $1 million out of that money that Bill Johnson Walsh just said was unused. So I don't sometimes understand like policymakers and how they make, and just societies in general, making things that are low-hanging fruit, making it even more complicated than it needs to be. And then people getting needlessly killed or people needlessly dying because people can't like just put kind of these real quick fixes in effect. Like it completely confounds me to no end. Let me go to Rahima out of Wyncote, who's calling in for a reality check. Rahima?
Well, hello, good morning.
Hey, Ms. Rahima.
I was listening and enjoying it, and you said much of what I was going to say, so I won't repeat myself. But, you know, I'm just so grateful, but I miss my parents, but I'm so grateful they are not here to experience this chaos.
Yeah.
Because to me, as you were saying, virtual reality is the least that they could do. And when my dad was in a nursing home down in South Philadelphia, I can't tell you how many times I walked in there and flipped out, okay? Like, no, my dad come from a beautiful home, and he will not live like this, okay? So I can't tell you how many times I talked to the director of the facility,
right,
the rehab facility, and at least 3 to 4 times. So I actually called and complained to the state about the conditions, and I just basically had to hire and bring people in to be around my dad 24 hours. So I cannot even imagine what is happening inside of these places right now. It really pains my heart to know that people, I believe that families should be able to hire an advocate, a health advocate, to go in and check on their loved ones on a weekly basis, just to make sure that their environment is correct and that they are safe and they are happy. A lot of our elders are passing away because of there's a such thing as a broken heart. There is a such thing as a broken heart. There, you know, that makes you, just as y'all was saying, emotionally unstable. So this needs to go to city council. This needs to be heard in every representative's office in Congress, where we are passing some laws to allow those people, those elders, to see their loved ones. I remember, Joe, when I was in the hospital for a rehab, and I've almost passed away. I came back. I had to go to rehab, and it was my family that made me strong. It was my family coming in, bringing me flowers, and just sitting there with me and talking to me that brought me back to a full strength. So people need that contact. They need that love. So we need to get some laws passed, not just talk about it, but we need to be about it, and we need to find a way collectively to make this happen for the families that's feeling the loss.
Thank you, Ms. Rahima. No, I appreciate you sharing that too. So, and that's something that's really important as well, because you have a layer of oversight that's always there from family, from loved ones, for residents of nursing home or residential care facilities, right? And so that layer of oversight has been removed because of the pandemic, and that was never intentional. But we have to ensure that residential care, nursing home facilities are not taking advantage of that, because, someone like you, for example, you caring for your father in that residential care facility in South Philly, you also provided a layer of oversight because, you have these laws in place, but they can't be enforced. They aren't being enforced on a 24/7 basis, due to lack of dollars for those agencies that are responsible for enforcement, due to lack of personnel, due to lack of monitors or inspectors that go into those types of facilities on a regular and daily basis. So family members provide that layer of oversight and support, and to constantly keep pressure on those facilities to do their best job to provide optimal care. It is very difficult. I understand, and I understand that there are a lot of nursing care, residential care facilities that do a fantastic job. But sometimes, but there are a lot of them that let's just be real here, right? I mean, it's always been a problem even before the pandemic. Just like when we keep talking about, we talk about medical professionals, medical practitioners in hospitals, and how they are trying to handle this surge of COVID-19 cases, how they've been handling this pandemic, and that's admirable, and our heart goes out to them. But also, let's not act like implicit bias, as they call it, or let's not act like systemic racism was not existing in these facilities before pandemic happened, and let's not act like Black patients, for example, were not being mistreated in these types of facilities and institutions before pandemic. That was going on for years, for generations. So let's not just suddenly act like none of those problems, none of those issues just magically disappeared overnight, that people suddenly had a big change in terms of how they functioned and operated due to the pandemic. No, some of these problems are still existing, and that's where family members come in as this layer of oversight. Phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties. Hold on one moment. We'll take your call before we go into this break. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Charles Ellison, Reality Check on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com. We'll be right back.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille iJoy.
Come on out and become a WURD Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun. Call 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Come on out and become a WURD Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app as well. Also have a I'm sorry. At North C. Jean on Twitter, adding to that discussion, seniors in nursing homes haven't been having visitations, not allowed to leave, and doctors are doing telemed, yet COVID-19 numbers still increase. Therefore, what's left to do? Test the employees. System seems to favor employees over the lives of seniors. So that's at North CG. So that's a good point. I'm making that point on, continuing to make that point on Twitter as well. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties, who's been holding patiently here for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Hey, how are you?
How are you doing? All right.
Morning. God bless you, and thank you so much for allowing me to talk. I want to enlighten you on a couple of points this morning. We have to keep on the front line and remember that 2 days before the pandemic happened, number 45 sent all the masks in Pennsylvania to China and left us faceless. That means spending for ourselves and no mask. Okay? Also, I want to let you know that the way to get in touch with the young people, we have to go through the celebrities, all the ball players, all the singers, the rappers, to get them out to vote because that's what they listen to. So if we can get them all to just get on social media, what they do, and tell them to vote, they'll do it. Register, they'll do it because all the money that they collect from all of our young people with all their rap and coming through our cities and have entertainment and we pay for this stuff, they need to give back.
Yeah.
Also, I want to enlighten you on nursing homes because I'm hands-on, okay? Yes, they do test now, and they do take your temperature. And also, because I work in daycare as well as nursing homes, I also want to let you know that we get grants, okay? And these grants provide all the equipment that we need to operate each and every day. So don't be fooled, okay? And the bigger your operation is, the bigger your grant is. And the daycare depends on my occupancy. That depends on my grant. We provide laptops, all kinds of toys, whatever I need for my kids. Also, in nursing homes, if you have 600 patients in a nursing home, you're going to get a grant that you can't imagine how much money. And they buy all of the equipment to lift up patients. They buy everything they need, supplies. And they don't give this money to the workers, okay? We don't get this money. This money goes directly to the facility to buy what they need.
Right.
Why they don't have laptops in hospitals and in nursing homes, they can have it because they get grants twice a year. I get them twice a year to get these grants. And they come from PAT because that's who we get them from. And the nursing homes get theirs as well from their institution, okay? So what the patient and their family members need to do is go to corporate and go to the head of the facility, the directors, and have a conversation with them as to why they can't provide these things for them because they can. Also, I want to touch bases on the soldiers. If these soldiers are out here getting killed by people who look just like them, please bring the soldiers home. They don't need to be out there fighting a war that they don't even know why they're fighting, okay? I also want to say the Philadelphia Inquirer is racist and always have been, just like Channel 29. We need to cut them off. Stop listening to them because they are Trump providers. Also, who am I? Who am I? I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am a mother. I am an aunt. I am a grandmother. I am a teacher. I am a leader. Who am I? And for every time you listen to Trump, you listen to every concentrating camp that he's trying to set up for a person look like you and like me.
Yeah.
God bless you. Have a perfect day.
Hey, thank you too, Sister Murray. I appreciate you. And that's that you make a really good point as far as nursing home facilities and the grants. Particularly the bigger the nursing home care facility, the better apparatus they have in place to secure grants or to secure foundation or philanthropic dollars, et cetera. Grants also government grants, state, local, and federal. And so that's, I mean, if you're having some issues with a nursing home, you suspect that they're not managing this crisis well, then it's time to start doing the research and finding out, okay, well, where exactly are they getting their funding? Like, are they getting grants? And that's as easy as kind of like the start, you know, kind of going online and doing that initial search. A lot of that information is public. You know how to dig, and you're looking at a nursing home care facility where your loved one is being cared for, and there's a problem in terms of putting in place something like virtual visitation. Check out, Sister Murray makes a very good point. Let me go to Tahir out of Ohio, who's calling in for a reality check. Tahir, what's good?
Hey, Charles. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Mike, just want to say here, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and, a couple things. I've said this before. The folks that are running governments at every level at this point are just out of touch. They don't have the skill set to be able to manage, implement, create programming or governing today for the citizens of this country. And that's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your mayor there, or, and I still claim Philadelphia. I was there for 60 years. Just overwhelmed, throwing stuff up against the wall. It's unexcusable to have to come back after you've gassed people and apologize. That don't help nothing. Did it? I mean, just little simple stuff like that. The mayor here in Columbus, the citizens have taken to go into his house a couple times, calling him out. He's real, and he doesn't know what to do. That's on local levels. But this stuff all across the board. And the great thing is that I do think we have a young cohort of people who are becoming a lot more cognizant of the importance of voting. And at some point, and I think in the next 5 years or so, we're going to see that manifest. I don't think that we should not continue to motivate these young people. There's always going to be a segment of young people who have challenges. When I was young, I had challenges, and protests really turned my lens around for a lot of things. But young people, they are doing a tremendous job today, and them doing the tremendous job, they're becoming empowered.
Yeah.
And lastly, I just wanted to just comment on the nursing homes. Nursing homes have been taken over by corporations about 20 years ago. So their business model and bottom line has been profit. So they had no interest in safety of their patients and making a work environment for their workers something safe and welcoming, and again, like the politicians, they are completely dealing with something that they have, number one, no interest in, number two, have no experience in, and folks that are in nursing homes, you gave some good advice. They are going to have to do some research. They are going to have to call those administrations and just hold them accountable for their folks and their loved ones that are in there. So thank you. It's always great talking to you.
It's always great talking to you, Tahir, too. Yeah, and because we're reaching, okay, so we've already had like issues in terms of, Tahir's right, you got nursing home consolidation. In fact, nursing home consolidation or corporate consolidation of nursing homes, a lot of nonprofit nursing homes pulling out of the business as well, and also your independent nursing home facilities, far and few in between. Right, so you got that issue, a lot of that corporate consolidation and deal making and mergers and acquisitions, that taking place in that facility, on top of the lack of skilled nursing home expertise or skilled nurses or staff. So there's been a staffing shortage in long-term care facilities and nursing home facilities for quite some time now. So you've got that. And then we've got the perfect storm of a pandemic that's taking place right now. And that's a stressor on not only the nursing home facilities, but obviously more clearly and more importantly, the people who are living there, the residents, you know, the seniors who are now kind of forced in a position due to health concerns have to stay in those residential care facilities. But we're going to have 10,000 baby boomers per day who are going to hit the age of 65 until the year 2030. 10,000 baby boomers per day hitting 65 until 2030. There's going to be a 75% increase in the number of people who are needing to utilize nursing homes or needing to utilize long-term residential care. We've got to get this right. So not just as a state, Pennsylvania, but you're going to have to get that right nationally because that elder care crisis is looming. You've seen that play out in countries like, for example, Japan, right, or even Russia. You know, other places where like the aging of the population is far outpacing the number of babies. So, and that creates like enormous and unforeseen strains on societies and on those types of institutions. So there's a lot that has to be done there. Let me go to Ruby out of Kensington, who's calling in for a reality check. Ms. Ruby?
The one you put up all the way on top.
Hey, good morning, Ms. Ruby. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, hi there.
I'm in reference to my brother's in the nursing home. I don't know whether I can give the name or not, but anyway, I was going there every weekend, every like Thursday and Friday, up until they stopped us from coming because of the pandemic. He now has a bed sore where he's telling me that it's infected, and I was going to go see him a couple of days because they put him in a bubble or something, and you can see him from the outside. But because of this bed sore, he said he cannot stand to get out of bed. He cannot walk on it. He said it's very painful to him. They're telling me it's not. I spoke with his social worker. She didn't know he had a bed sore, she told me. So I know I had reported to the state a couple of times because I went up there and I had to strip the beds myself because the bed was wet all the way down to the bottom, to the mattress, and then his wheelchair was wet where he had urinated on himself. They're not doing this because they're not telling him. Up until I stopped coming in March, he never had a bed sore. Now he has his bed sore, and it's really infected. They're telling me it's not infected.
Hey, have you called the ombudsman, you know, the state ombudsman about that?
I don't know how to call it, but I did call.
Let me give you this number because we did get this number from the last guest we had on who was talking about this topic just before we went into open phone lines. But let me give you this number. It's it's Pennsylvania's long-term care ombudsman.
Okay.
Ready for it? Let me know if you have a pen and paper in here. Okay. It's area code 717.
717.
783.
783.
8975.
8975.
And I would urge you and others out there who are having or identifying these issues with long-term care facilities or nursing homes, call the Pennsylvania State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. That's one start. Also, you know, if you know who your state representative is, right? If you live in Philadelphia, you want to also identify your city council person and also your state representative. I don't know, do you know who your state representative and state senator, you know who they are?
Well, my state representative is Finazzi.
Okay. Well, Finazzi, which he's actually on his way out.
In 2436 North 19th Street.
Okay. And you know who your state senator is?
I know who mine is. I don't know who his is.
Okay, I'm not sure. I would have to know. I don't want you giving out your address or anything like that. But if you go online and put in your address, and you can find out who your state senator is as well. I don't want you putting your address out there or anything like that. And then, but yeah, just go online and find out who you have a state representative and you also have a state senator. And so, and then you got your city council person, and those are just, just stops along the way, and just document it. And I would, not just for you, but for everyone else, and let them know that they need to pay a lot more attention to, and they need to start doing a lot more policy making around long-term care facilities. And that's something I'll probably, it's something I'm going to look a little bit deeper into. I've got a little bit, sort of a refreshed interest in this, especially since this last conversation with Bill Johnston Welsh. And just go to aarp.org. Because that's who we had on, was the Pennsylvania state director for AARP, and contact them, reach out to them, let them know about it. I think if you have enough people calling in and constantly and complaining about or sharing the kind of stories you have, Ms. Ruby, then we could get some traction on that and have people to start immediately responding to it. Ms. Ruby, no, thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna have to go so I can. No, thank you. So make sure you call that Pennsylvania. Start with the long-term care ombudsman. I'm sorry. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for a reality check. He's been holding patiently. Prince.
Hey man, how are you this morning?
Hey, what's happening? Okay, how are you?
Not much, man. I remember there was a time that we had a place called OIC that will allow our elders to go there. All they had to do was get there, and you had a group of people that was intimately involved in going online for them or redirecting them to certain places. So we need to create, because once you tell them to do that, if they're still not skilled and if they're by themselves, the chances of them being successful in doing or seeking information, is slim to none. So I think we need to, and that's something I think we need to work on. Where can we go warehouse-wise where all our seniors can either call in and get the attention they need or come in and we walk them through whatever it is they need. But to your point, we grow up hugging and nurturing and tying into each other. This had to have been a difficult year for those folks who had passed away and they couldn't bury their brother or their mom or their father. And so we adhere to the system, but the system has not delivered for us. And so we have to find a way, like the woman said, there needs to be some advocacy process for us to get to those people who raised us or who've been a part of our lives forever.
Yeah.
The last day shouldn't be an invisible day. You know what I mean? My last point is, to your point, 200 deaths halfway through the year. We're going to break a record this year. And every time I hear the news say, well, she's out of town. And I get the fact that people still have lives, although they have a massive job to do. But you can't leave in the middle of a crisis like this because we're having shootings every day now, not every other day. And so
we are.
for them to announce that, so we don't know if she's interviewing somewhere, we don't know if she took a vacation, but to leave while we're at 200, and I don't believe this, we've solved 65% of the cases. Well, before you got here, we couldn't even solve 50% of them. Now, all of a sudden, you done jumped the numbers up? I like to see that. I like to investigate those numbers. What 65% of the 200 deaths have you already solved? Because if that's the case, you probably could have prevented them.
Yeah.
So, look, thanks for your time, man. I'm going to hang up and I'm going to listen to you.
No, that's a big problem, and we're over 200. We actually went over 200 about a couple of days ago. Number of homicides that have taken place in Philadelphia in 2020. So we're now 23% above, and we've been off the mark here in Reality Check for a couple of days now. Because normally, we try to make a daily exercise out of this about watching what's happening as far as the homicide rate in Philadelphia. So this time last year we had 164 homicides. Now, to date this year, we have 202. 202 as of yesterday. That's a 23% increase over what happened or what was the homicide rate this time last year. That's very, very problematic. It's very troubling. 23% is high. Let's not act like it isn't. I have not seen that go below 10%. Now, one thing I have looked at it every day. I have not seen it go below 10% higher than where it was the previous year. So and so Prince, to his point, he's absolutely right. And you do get the sense, Philadelphia does get the sense that the administration, the mayor, I can assure you, we know this, if there was a Philadelphia police officer, and this is not in any way disparaging officers who are like on the front line and trying to, really sincerely trying. I know a couple of them. They're really truly, they come from these neighborhoods and they really truly sincerely are trying to do something about the violence that's gripping Philadelphia right now. But if there, I assure you, if there was a Philadelphia police, God forbid that this would ever happen, there was a Philadelphia police officer getting shot every day, and going to the hospital every day in the line of duty, best believe the mayor, members of city council, including the city council president, the commissioner, they would be going to those hospitals, visiting those police officers every day. And that, I feel like that's the same kind of attitude that has to take place for gun violence victims, or for just violence victims in general, because it's not just gun violence. We do have the highest amount of violence is due to guns, but there's a lot of other violence out there. But I feel like that's kind of the missing ingredient here as far as the city's response. There is and people will deny it. People in City Hall will deny it, and that's okay. You'll be like, no, like you're wrong. Like we do care. No, you don't, because like if you did, y'all would be visiting. Because I've seen that. We've seen that happen. Like remember what happened with Nicetown when those officers were shot, and that was a bad day. And that's what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to go visit, particularly those folks who are in the business of public safety for the city. You should go visit them, and they're city employees. But I feel like you should be doing the same for people who are victims of that violence. Particularly families, people who are victims of the homicide. And I know that like injuries, violence injuries, particularly gun assault injuries or aggravated assault injuries, they far outnumber the number of homicides. But at the very least, like go visit the folks who are the families of victims, people who've succumbed to homicide. And I think you would see a sea change in terms of how overall the city's attitude, because a lot of this is, yes, it's about resources. Yes, it's about policy. Yes, it's about, how does the city more effectively respond to violent crime? But it's also about mindset. Mindset's a big piece of it. I don't see that kind of that urgency mindset coming from City Hall on this issue of violence in the city of Philadelphia, and it keeps getting higher. Let me go to Lola out of Jenkintown, who's calling in for a reality check. Lola?
Yes. Hi, Charles. Thank you so much for this topic today. You always have great topics. I wanted to say about the nursing home, I wanted to make 2 points. What you're talking about in the nursing homes is so true, because my grandmother was she was in an assisted living place, Chestnut Arbors, which is going to in Chestnut Hill, and it was a very good place. She has since went on about 2 years ago, and I just want to say that I would go up there every single day after work, right? And I would go, sometimes they were open 24 hours. I would sometimes get up in the middle of the night, because when I was younger, I would, stay with her and get up in the middle of the night and can go in her room. I would go up there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Charles, and just sit with her, talk to her, whatever. Not that she would be woke, but sometimes I just needed to see her. And this is really heartbreaking for African-American families, all families, period. Don't get me wrong. But the closeness for us with our grandparents, a lot of us were raised by our grandparents, or grandparents had a significant part in our lives. And so I just, she's went on, and I thank God, because at this time, I would be out of my mind. I mean, we spent so much time together. All the people who were there with their grandparents or grandfathers and stuff like that, and not to be able to touch them. She would say to me, this is keeping me going, seeing my grandkids, seeing my great-grandkids and stuff, and to have them isolated like that and then killed off the way that they were. It is really terrible. And what you have talked about today is so important and has so much significance that these bills should already be on the books, and they need to really get to work on enforcing the laws that are already on the books. So I also wanted to say this, Charles, about this one more thing about this. If you knew about this, and I know you investigate a lot of different things, but the boy that was killed in Aurora, Colorado, Elijah McLean, yes, thank you. I wanted to, you know that this boy was very docile, very, just a very calm little boy. What do you think about this? They shot him up with ketamine, right? He was already on the ground. I did some research. Do you know that the EMTs, if a police officer asks them to put this in your body, that they can also do this in Pennsylvania. And I wanted to know why in the hell, is that allowed to put that in somebody's body? They gave him too much. He was 140 pounds. They said they thought he was 220 pounds, so they gave him enough to subdue a horse. This is what veterinarians use to subdue animals. Charles, what is going on in this world? And what do you think about the people who are calling the cops, saying these things? The person called the cops said that he looks sketchy. So these people need to be put. Charles, this world is insane. You can call the cops, say that somebody looks sketchy. Now the person ends up dead who was not doing anything. And then this ketamine thing, they can, if a police officer asks them to give you the EMT, they can shoot that in your body. What do you think about that? Okay.
Yeah, that's what we need to look at, because typically when we're thinking about police committing violence against unarmed civilians, we're typically thinking of how they're using guns. We're thinking of chokeholds, right? We need to look at the entire arsenal of police and also auxiliary public safety services, everything that they use. And so we need to be holistic about that conversation. And we aren't enough, particularly I'm glad you mentioned with ketamine. So it's okay, let's look at, stuff like pepper spray. Let's look at tasers, because tasers can be fatal, right? Depending on the charge and depending on the health condition of the person who's the target of the taser. Of medicine like ketamine, what's the relationship between police officers and because those EMT officials or those EMT officers that arrived at the scene, they were following guidance from police. They wanted to calm him down, so that's why they used it. So that's why it's important. So to your point, and now it's incumbent upon all states to look at that, because sometimes we're not thinking holistically enough, or we're not broadening our imagination in terms of the many ways that a person could die when they're in police custody, or when they're having some sort of interaction or engagement, some sort of tense engagement with police. And so what does that look like, not just in terms of a chokehold or in terms of when they're shot, but then there's other things that can happen. There's other things, there's other tools that they can use that are at their disposal. Handcuffs, for example, the way a person is handcuffed or hogtied, hogties, you're not supposed to do that, but we're still finding police departments doing that as well too. But those things can break arteries and limbs. They can potentially kill people. So all of that needs to be looked at. Obviously, that gets back to the question of training. And then it just gets back to a larger question about, I wrote about this in the Philadelphia Citizen once before about how do we eliminate, because some of this is just common sense, right? So how do we eliminate folks who have those kinds of violent tendencies from joining police departments in the first place, right? And then there's a number of steps that can be taken there. Lowell, I got to go to break. We got to go to G.S. Potter, who's going to be coming up next, our regular contributor here on WURD's Reality Check. Phone lines are open while we talk to G.S. Potter, 215-634-8065, toll-free 866-361-0900. Let's take a break and we'll get right back.
If you want to start your morning with mindfulness, motivation, and inspiration, tune in to Daybreak with me, Helana, here on WURD Radio, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 a.m. I am a health and wellness coach with over 15 years experience helping people to transform their lives. On the show, we talk health and wellness 360, from getting your mind right to getting your money right. So let's rise and shine together right here on WURDradio.com, 96.1 FM, 900 on your AM dial, on Daybreak every morning.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. No fear, just facts. WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open, by the way. First, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, and we're bringing back Dr. G.S. Potter, who's joining us, contributing editor for the B Note, thebenote.com, and also a regular contributor here on Reality Check WURD. She joins us now by phone. Dr. Potter, what's good? How you doing?
Hanging in there, child. How you
Yes,
doing?
I know you are. So, but thanks so much for joining us, taking a little bit of time out of your day. Definitely, I urge people to go to the benote.com, which is the companion magazine, our companion hybrid online magazine and newsletter for Reality Check here on WRD. We don't talk about it enough, but great content at the benote.com, of which I'm the publisher. G.S. Potter's latest piece is Trump has definitely triggered the disqualification clause. Trump has definitely triggered the disqualification clause. So talk about that, because we've talked about this before, right, GS? And so
Yeah.
we need to sort of refresh people on the 14th Amendment. If you had any doubt before that the 14th Amendment did not apply to what's happening now today in terms of the president's conduct or misconduct, those doubts should be dashed by now, because especially with recent revelations. But explain.
Yeah, well, I've written about this act for a while. It's actually it's part of the Reconstruction Acts, which were designed after the Civil War to, end slavery and do things like keep Confederates and traitors out of office. So the 14th Amendment is really well known for other clauses, but in the third section, in the third section of the 14th Amendment, there's a disqualification clause, and I've talked about this a few times. What it says is that if you engage in insurrection or rebellion while holding office, or you give aid or comfort to the enemies, then you can be disqualified from running for office. And I've believed before, when other things have come out about Russia, I believe that when Trump sent armed people to mace and hurt public officials and members of the public, that's part of insurrection and rebellion. And I've argued that because Trump has allowed COVID to spread, and under the Patriot Act, actually, it's in other states' ordinances, it's illegal to transfer viruses, including the coronavirus, to other people knowingly, that could be part of insurrection and rebellion. But I think the strongest argument here is that clearly, now that it's coming out, that Trump is allowing Russians to pay Taliban and Taliban affiliate soldiers and militants to kill Americans, that is absolutely giving aid and comfort to the enemy. And because he has given that aid and comfort to the enemy, that has triggered a violation of the third section of the 14th Amendment. And if we take him to court, potentially, if we're in the right courts especially, he can be blocked from being on the ballot in November. And I think that's something we should give a shot.
Yeah, that's worthwhile, particularly when the Trump administration is filing multiple lawsuits trying to take away mail-in balloting from folks, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's, you guys want to spend money on that? Okay, well, we'll spend money on suing you for violating Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I'm just feeling like that's a reasonable and very necessary tit for tat. Let's read the 14th Amendment, third section. No person shall, let me get my, just kind of like had a frog in my throat for a minute. No person shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, so that includes governors, to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, which is the United States, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. And enemies thereof, that's like Russians, pandemic, Chinese. there's like a whole bunch of different enemies that Saudi Arabia, right? So it's like, the list kind of goes on with that. Why aren't people, like when I mention this to folks, they kind of say like, certain people within the political field, oh, that's interesting. but no one wants to take it seriously yet. It hasn't, although, which is interesting though, GS, you're not the only one saying this. I did see the opinions editor in the Washington Post, Fred Hyatt. He did pen a piece the other day saying that, you know what, we should revisit, they want to revisit impeachment. There is, and I am hearing whispers on Capitol Hill about people rethinking that. Well, maybe we should go back to impeachment. But, this might be sort of a shorter route, and it might be something that's a little bit more effective and a lot noisier. It'll kind of create that kind of mobilization that you need ahead of the general election. So, why do you find people aren't taking this? The people that need to take it seriously aren't taking it seriously.
That's a question I think we've been talking about all the years we've been knowing each other, right?
Right.
Like, one of the things we connect on most is voting rights. And the reason we've been in the streets for generations protesting and dying and putting our lives and livelihoods on the line is so we can get these policies passed, so we can take these people to court, right? When they make these violations. Like, we should have been in court forever, all over, voter purging and all the different kinds of voter suppression before 2016, before 2012 when Shelby versus Holder came down. Like, we have to be in there now. But the people that actually hold the pocketbooks and have the lawyers, they're just not into using the courts. And that's what's really killing us, right? Because, like, the Republican Party, remember back in the day when they threw up some affirmative action cases about, like, a white lady that was basically a high school dropout that was trying to prove that she couldn't get into college. A black person took her place, and she couldn't get in, even though the black person had, astonishing credentials. They will use the court for any ridiculous thing just to keep these tied up, just to figure out what will work, what won't work, so that it can advance their next case. And we just have not had that. We have not had that. But right now is not the time to screw around, right? This is an actual law. It's an actual policy. It's something that could keep Trump out of office. And I think every state, every locality, every official that can launch a case, we should try every federal circuit court and get this going. Because if we can keep him off in November, we're literally saving lives. We're literally saving the nation. We're literally saving ourselves. It's not about putting a Democrat in office. It's not about anything else except getting the traitor that is literally trying to kill millions, if you go by pandemic numbers, millions of Americans out of office right now.
How would that happen in your mind, GS? How would that happen? Like, what are the steps towards? I mean, is that like officially the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, filing that suit? Does it have to be just the DNC? I mean, or is it like, I don't know, some sort of like political action committee? Is it like a group of or cluster of citizens, that suddenly, find some lawyers pro bono who are pretty much like, hey, let's do it. Why not? Let's give it a shot. How does that happen? Like, how could people file a suit like that?
Well, for the insurrection and rebellion case, well, let me first start off by saying anyone can file a case. You can file a case. The Republicans do it all the time, knowing that they don't have the proper standing, just to get attention on something that they're trying to do and just to try to see what the courts will say to know what they need to do next. So we could just file, anybody could file right now and get told they don't have standing, but it will give attention and it will get information out. To have standing for the insurrection and rebellion, you need to be a state official or a public official. So one of the things I was looking at is there's a congresswoman that was pepper sprayed by the Trump administration or by the forces that were harming the protesters. I think that's someone that could potentially file a case. I think any public official that got COVID could file a case under insurrection and rebellion. I think for the giving aid and comfort part, that the strongest case would be brought about by a congressperson, either state or, preferably national level. But I think the strongest standing to have your case go forward, that means, what standing means is you have to be a particular person in the context of the event to be able to sue, right? So if somebody, let's say Charles Ellison is hurt by somebody, knock on wood, that never, ever happens, I can't file a case. It has to be you, right? Or it has to be someone in that context. So to have standing here, the strongest standing would be a public official. So we need the DNC to select a public official to launch this case against the Republican Party, against the Trump administration. And that's the other thing. It can go further than Trump. It can actually be used to sue the entire GOP. That's how they kept the Confederates out. It was a law that was applied to all the Confederacy. So they got to figure out which court would have the best chance, get a public official to launch the case, and then move forward hard. And if it gets rejected, go ahead in another court, just like the Republicans do. Don't back down.
Right.
Because, you know, you hit a roadblock. But that's the kind of effort we need, and we're just not seeing it there.
No, that's right. Don't back down on that. Let's take some calls. We have phone lines open while we talk with Dr. G.S. Potter, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Antoinette out of Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check. Antoinette?
How you doing now, Brother Ellison?
How you doing?
I was calling to say happy belated Father's Day to you, and happy belated Mother's Day to your wife.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Oh, okay. That's great.
And same to you. All right.
Okay, thank you. And happy belated Mother's Day to Dr. Potter. I just love her and her children. I have you on my prayer list, and I just hope you're doing well. And you all just be safe. You know, I have you all on my prayer list. So I just wanted to call in while I was able. God bless you all.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We're trying to get Dr. Potter to Philly too, so trying to move her and her kids to Philly. So we looking at any just putting that out there too. You know, for those listening, yeah, we're definitely trying to get G.S. Potter, Dr. Potter to Philly. Philly could use someone like Dr. Potter too, so we're trying to get her and her two lovely little ones to Philly, moved permanently to Philly. Let me go back to the phone lines. Thank you, Ms. Antoinette. I appreciate that. I'll pass it along to Mrs. Ellison as well. Let me go to Maurice out of Southwest, who's no, sorry, we got to take a break. GS, can you stay on for a couple more minutes after break?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great, because I had a couple more questions to ask you. And the Maurice out of Southwest, hold on for 1 second. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staton Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staton, Executive Director of LESIT.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message. I'm asking for your support to join our team. We need a leader to unite this country. We need a leader who will push an agenda to move everyone forward, to share in our country's great economic prosperity. Someone who will lead, but also who will listen. Someone we can be proud of. This election isn't about me. It's about you, your family, your community, and our country.
Paid for by Biden for President.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
Okay, phone lines are still open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. We're going to get a few more minutes from Dr. G.S. Potter, having some good conversation with her about the president already triggering the disqualification clause in the Constitution. Maurice out of Southwest was holding patiently for a reality check discussion with Dr. Potter. Maurice, what's good? Maurice, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hey, listen, it's an honor to be talking to both of you, but I couldn't understand your Fantasy Island talk about taking the president to court. Look, we don't have time for that. We only got 4.5 months.
Yeah.
The election is here. Going to court, they're going to delay the court hearing to after election anyway if it did happen. So let's not waste our time with this Fantasy Island talk. What we need to be talking about
I don't know, wait, Maurice, hold on one second, Maurice. I don't hear the Republicans saying we aren't going to launch cases about mail-in voting because it's too close to the election. I don't think we need to be stopping ourselves before we start.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a good point, Maurice.
The only reason I said that is because as long as Republicans control the Senate, we're messed up on them kind of things. As long as they control the Senate, right now they can do anything they want because that's where the buck stops. No matter how many bills are passed or how many laws we try, once it gets to the Senate, it's dead on arrival. So what I'm saying is we need to be working on opening up as many.
But she's talking about a federal lawsuit though. So this is not in the legislature. This is in the federal courts.
That's not going to take place no time soon. That's what I'm saying. I mean, even
I know there's some laws that the Trump administration passed to try to, take away rights from the LGBTQ community that just got shut down in the courts. The Muslim ban got shut down in the courts. There's a lot of things that have been shut down in the courts. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that the Republicans, they've had their eyes on the courts forever. They just passed their 200th conservative judge under Trump, and we need to talk about how we're going to get them all out of office after we get Trump out of office. That's another discussion. But the fact is, they've been using the court so effectively. That's how we got here, and there's no defense. I'm a defensive strategist. One of my biggest nightmares is I feel like I'm standing here looking at an army of zombies and White Walkers and Republicans, and there's nobody standing holding the line with us. We need more people, more cases in the courts, using the laws that were put in place to stop things like this from happening. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's not unprecedented to have traitors in the United States. It's not unprecedented to have white supremacists in office. What is unprecedented is that we don't use the tools that we have at our disposal to stop them. So I'm saying, I hear you. It's really frustrating. There's lots of cases that don't go through. Yeah. But we got to get up and we got to keep fighting.
That's very great. And Maurice, to real quick, I'll let you talk, Maurice, but the other point is, 2 points here is one that, you using these various tools, whether it's in the legislative branch or the judicial branch, you use it to full capacity, like you exhaust all those resources and all those options. We did the same thing. You can't say it's a waste of time, like when civil rights activists and lawyers used to file lawsuits all the time. They use those tools against segregated states or segregated governments or racist institutions and government agencies to get certain things done. So that was used to full effect. For some reason, I don't see that happening. So I feel like, okay, Republicans aren't saying, hey, this is a waste of time for us to file a lawsuit to try to get mail-in balloting out of Pennsylvania or California or wherever. It's a waste of time. So we're not, let's not even do it. But they know they're doing it, and a lot of times it becomes successful, even if it doesn't have standing, and even if they know they're going to lose in court. But it's a way to, distract Democrats, distract voters, to make the other side waste money. So why not, kind of take a much more aggressive defensive posture or go on offense and file a suit like this? But to your point, Maurice, that's not at all to take away from the mobilization that needs to happen to get people out and vote and make sure that this thing happens in November. So to your point, Maurice, I understand that, and we're all passionate about that. We want that to happen. Yeah. But I think that there's some merit here for a case like this while voters are getting mobilized to get Trump out of office and even get Republicans, get them out of office so Democrats can retake the Senate, and then we can go on about the business of trying to fix things. But go ahead, Maurice, finish up what you're saying.
Listen, I think you guys misunderstand me. I'm not saying don't file the lawsuits. What I'm saying is it's too late to do it. That's all I was saying. It's too late. By the time we go through the court system, election is here. That's all I was saying.
And I'm saying that is incorrect. So now that you know it's not too late, let's all get on board.
You actually think if we started that today, by the time election is, the courts have made their decision by that time?
Well, you know what? Let's entertain this idea a bit, because I think you bring a good point. Some of the people I'm working with, I'm trying to tell them kind of the same thing. Like, we don't have forever to launch these cases, right? We do not have forever. But one of the things we can do is if we got it launched in a bunch of states and a bunch of courts, maybe we can't get it to the federal level, but maybe we can keep them off the ballot in enough states by the time election comes that, maybe if they hear it, they hear the rest of the federal case in December, January, February, whatever, it's too late because we already got them off the ballot in Pennsylvania and we already got them off the ballot in Arizona and Wisconsin and Michigan. So if we can bring it down even to the state or the local level, but I think state is where we need to apply it. in the federal courts, then we can still make some progress that could be really important if we use the electoral college numbers to direct our movement.
Right. I think that's smart, Maurice. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, there are three potential advantages. There are three potential advantages that could happen in the immediate future with a lawsuit like this. One is you successfully keep Trump off the ballot, and maybe even certain other Republicans off the ballot. Like, say, you throw Mitch McConnell in there. Okay, well, let's fight it out in Kentucky. But let's focus on Trump. You keep him off the ballot in major battleground states, including Pennsylvania, or including certain sections of Pennsylvania. You also, that's going to be such astoundingly like a sensationalistic lawsuit, right? I mean, it's going to create so much buzz and attention that could actually be something that could mobilize Democratic-based voters. They're like, wow, like Democrats actually going to go hard on this, like, wow, and so that could be used as a mobilization tool. The third other potential advantage is if you do get friendly judges along the way and say, you know what, yeah, this suit does have merit. And deliberate and rule in favor of it. So I mean, there's all sorts of different scenarios that can help that can happen. It is within the realm of possibility, and people have to start thinking, thinking creatively and outside the box if they really truly want to win this thing. They got to you got to throw everything out there and see what works. That's what Republicans are doing. That's how they've been able to win these elections that seem impossible at first. That's how Trump won in 2016. He threw stuff out there, saw if it could stick, and it stuck, and he won. And now we're in this situation as is.
But let me close with this. I think that we should be working on is getting as many. Now we know that they're working on closing down the polls. We need to get all those polls reopened. That's what we need to be working on, so that people that want to vote won't be in their third hour waiting in line to decide, it's time to go home and eat dinner. That's what we need to be working on instead of letting them do this. And they boldly doing it. And I know. And the second thing that you said was, when have the Democrats ever put up a good fight? First of all, and what you're saying is, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I'm just saying, if you go through the court system, there's no way they're going to be able to schedule this and have it done by election time. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm saying you're wrong. So, but
with all respect, too, Maurice.
I love you, Maurice, and I'm 100% with you, especially on the voting. I think we can do both. We have the energy to do both, and other things. There's a lot of things. This is a war, right? Everybody needs to be playing their position hard. But we do still have a small window, and that's what I'm saying. The window has not closed yet. It will close very soon. You're absolutely right. But right now, it is still open. And while it's still open, I think we need to take some quick action if we can.
Hey, GS, I'll talk with you about this offline later, too. We're supposed to have Philadelphia City Commissioner Lisa Dealey on next week. She's coming on next Wednesday, and we're going to talk about officiating the election in Philadelphia or in a place like Philadelphia. Should folks be having, direct conversations with election officials on the county, state level saying, hey, are you thinking about, or how can we as clusters of citizens activate the disqualification clause and taking his name off the ballot? Should that also be a conversation taking place directly with election officials?
I'm not sure if election officials could help so much, but I think, again, different representatives we could talk to, again, those with standing especially. And I think, the military is mad right now. If we could talk to military officials or politicians affiliated with the military, that would, our strongest standing would be to have a 14th Amendment case brought by a military official, I believe.
Who is that congressperson? It just escaped me. The one that was tear gassed.
I can't remember either. I was just reading about her too. It's a black woman. It's an elder, and I want to say
just remember it.
Ohio, but yeah, I'm
out of Columbus, Ohio. Oh my gosh, her name escaped me, and it'll come to me. Joyce Beatty.
Yeah.
Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. I don't know if and Troy, I'm not sure, because we have weekly conversations with the Congressional Black Caucus, but let's see if we can get Congresswoman Beatty on. I'm going to start asking that question of members of Congress, because we have Congressional Black Caucus members on every Monday, and then we have Philadelphia area Congress people. I want to start floating that, the disqualification clause, because it's like why have a constitution if you're not going to use it? Everybody wants to talk. I don't get that. I don't get that. People want to, it's like technology and pandemic. Everyone, they forced this stuff down our throat all these years, it's like permeating every, like uncomfortably every aspect of our lives, of my life, your life. But then they don't want to use it, right when finally the moment arrives that it's built for. Like, I don't get that. You finally have a constitution, you got a section in the 14th Amendment that's built for a moment like this, but people don't want to use it. Like, like it just, like that kind of psyche, that kind of like mindset. I'm sorry. So I really apologize, Jess, for going on a rant, because it just confounds me. Like, it's so easy too. It's like, okay. And like all these lawyers out here, like, and then, oh, look, Mike Bloomberg, how much money did he dump in his like epically failed Democratic nomination bid? Couldn't even explain stop and frisk. Like, fam, you want to run for president, you got all this money, you're going to use your own money, you ain't sit down and figure out like, okay, you know what, I'm going to have to kind of explain myself on stop and frisk. I know this is going to come up, so let me make sure I come up with an effective argument. All right, so you failed at that. Now it's like we don't hear anything about Bloomberg. He's put out all this money on consultants who knew that he was going to be like this, like arrogant, I don't want to call him too many names, because I do appreciate the fact that he bought ads like when no one else did on WURD. I appreciate that. I appreciate Bloomberg and his campaign doing that. They recognize that. So, but I'm just saying, like, you go to someone like him and just be like, hey, you got a couple of million to spend on this lawsuit, 14th Amendment. I just really think that that's something that should be done. Because like the mail-in ballot lawsuit that Republicans are filing, the Trump campaign is filing right now in a number of states, including Pennsylvania, has absolutely no merit. Like none. There's no standing. So it's like, they get it. Like, they get it. Like, hey, like, this is here to be used. Let's raise. They actually raise money. They have separate accounts where they dump money into just straight up for lawyers, for legal defense. They call it legal defense funds, or basically they're not legal, they're legal offense funds to put their political opposition off their game. And it just confounds me to no end that people won't try something like this. I'm sorry, go ahead and finish up, GS.
No, I mean, this is my worst nightmare. That's what I'm saying. Like, my worst nightmare isn't that we have this fight to fight and we go in and we fall. My greatest nightmare is that we don't fight at all. I have a lot of us, our whole lives, our elders. Like, I look at the things that are happening with Black Lives Matter and I cry for my elders that have passed not being able to see this. I'm getting teary-eyed right now. Yeah. It's been generations of work that we put into it. I have given my whole life to this cause, and a lot of us have. It feels like being like a quarterback in the Super Bowl and having to sit on the bench. It
does, yeah.
So I'm right there with you. Like I said, everybody needs to be able to play their position as hard as they can, and they need to be able to be given the tools to do that. And in terms of policy and law, we see it for everything. That's why we're here with the, qualified immunity, banning chokeholds, getting rid of the police unions. These are things we've been calling for generations, and it's not until now, until people are like, oh yeah, let's put some money into that, that we're making some progress.
Before you go, before you go, Dr. Potter, got Kimberly Ferris, a listener on Facebook Live, and she's saying, I hear Maurice, but we should be able to launch multiple actions at once. Thank you, Kimberly. It makes me think of Eddie Murphy's Harlem Nights movie, the gun shootout. Arsenio Hall's gang all had automatic weapons shooting at quick. Then you had the one using a little pistol. I remember that, shooting one bullet at a time. The latter is not the pace we need to be moving at right now. Thank you. Kimberly perfectly illustrated that.
Comment of the day.
I'm gonna watch. That is literally, yes, that is the comment of the week of the election. Like I'm gonna rewatch Harlem Nights. I remember that scene. She is so spot on with that. We gotta let you go, Dr. Potter. It was a great conversation. Dr. G.S. Potter, check out her piece in the BE Note that just dropped today, the BENote.com. Trump has definitely triggered the disqualification clause. Share that piece. Like, share it by text, email, push that out. Start talking to any of your friends who might know some friends who got some money, some deep pockets, to file this lawsuit, please. Trump has definitely triggered the disqualification clause by Dr. G.S. Potter, and she's been joining us here on Reality Check. Doctors, it's great to join you, and I see a number of people sharing it on Twitter as well. You got a fan in Mike Green. Yeah, Mike Green, who comes on here regularly. He immediately pushed that out when it went out on the B Note. So if he's looking at it too, he's like, yeah, that's he's like, we need to do that. So I'm sure he's going to start having those conversations too. Thanks so much for your work, Dr. Potter. We'll talk to you soon. All right, take care.
Thank you. You stay safe.
All right, you too. Stay safe. Stay well. All right, and once again, we're trying to get Dr. Potter to Philly. Like, somebody call me and figure out how to get Dr. Potter to Philly. All right, let's take a break. No, seriously, like I'm really trying to figure out like how to get Dr. Potter and her kids to Philly. So it'd be a great move, and she could do a lot for the city. It's kind of energy that the city needs. We are going to take a break. When we come back in the noon hour, we're heading into our citizen segment. We're going to talk with Craig Antico and Jerry Ashton about medical debt, and they created a nonprofit that attempts to wipe out people's medical debt. So this should be a fascinating discussion that's taking place. They were just recently reported on the Philadelphia Citizen. So let's take a break and we'll come back talking about medical debt up next here on Reality Check WURD.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita. Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m. Right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Frank Rizzo's statue may be gone, but the Fraternal Order of Police maintains a dictatorship over the political establishment of Philadelphia. Decertify the FOP, bring Mumia home, defund the police. Rally in March, July 4th, 2020, 12 noon, at the site of the fallen Rizzo statue. For more information, go to mobilization4mumia.com. Join us, July 4th, 12 noon, at the site of the fallen Rizzo statue. See you there.
1 in 23 will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer in their lifetime, yet more than 60% of deaths from colorectal cancer could be avoided with preventative screening. A colonoscopy can save your life. Skip the pre-visit and schedule your screening directly at einstein.edu/colon. Colon cancer is preventable. Learn more at einstein.edu/colon.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com. Word TV, Word app, wordradio.com and Word TV. That's what you view, that's what you listen and or stream to if you are listening beyond the greater Philly, Delaware Valley area, and as many of you do throughout the nation and throughout the world here on Reality Check WURD. Once again, continue to go to the BE Note. That's our companion magazine. That's the official companion magazine to Reality Check on WURD, of which I'm the publisher. It's a hybrid online magazine and newsletter. So you can sign up, you can get a newsletter as well, and you can get wonderful and insightful analysis like what Dr. G.S. Potter just wrote about the disqualification clause in the Constitution. So definitely check that out. Speaking of publications, we are partnered with the Philadelphia Citizen to present you with this fantastic segment, which we've been running for some time now, our Citizens segment. Go to the philadelphiacitizen.org for more information there. Actually, you will see, in fact, the latest, it just dropped, it just came up, the latest Reality Check column, which I've written. It's entitled Cracking the Youth Voter Code. Cracking the Youth Voter Code. Want to get more young protesters casting a vote? Start by taking them seriously. So that's Cracking the Youth Voter Code is the latest in the philadelphiacitizen.org. But today, joining us today to talk more about what they're doing are the two founders of RIP Medical Debt, Craig Antico and Jerry Ashton, and they were featured in a recent story about medical debt and about this idea, this nonprofit that they started called RIP Medical Debt, which attempts to, it's eliminated $2 billion of medical debt nationwide for folks who are just inundated and struggling under medical bills. They join us by phone to talk a little bit about that. How are you both doing?
Terrific. I'm doing
all right.
fine.
Excellent. So, okay, who am I? So who's Craig and who's Jerry? I just want to make sure I get those voices correct.
I'm Craig. I'm Jerry.
All right, excellent. All right, great.
The Craig and Jerry show.
Craig and Jerry show, right? We're gonna have a little bit of Craig and Jerry show for about a little bit under 20 minutes. I appreciate this. So, how bad is medical? I'll start with you, Craig. Go by alphabetical order here. How bad is medical debt in America? Because this was bad enough where you guys raised $2 billion and tried to wipe out or successfully wiped out some medical debt out there. But let's talk about the scope of this problem first.
Sure. About $1 trillion of debt is outstanding from just the last 5 to 7 years. So it is extremely untenable, unpayable debt.
Wow. 1 trillion.
And 1 trillion with a T. Yeah, 1 trillion with a T.
1 trillion with a T. And Jerry, we used to talk so much about medical debt, right? I feel like at one point there was like this big conversation about medical debt, and then obviously other stories about debt like student loan debt that kind of came in, sort of pushed. It's there, we know it's there, but it's like everyone sort of shrugged about. I just get that feeling, and maybe you have a different view on this, but everyone sort of just shrugged about it and just like, well, that's just something you deal with.
Well, actually, it's like whistling past a graveyard.
Yeah.
The reality is that one time or another, one point in our lives, we will encounter either an accident or an illness, and that's one that may very well put us into a hospital. And when that puts us into a hospital, whether you're insured, underinsured, not insured, almost inevitably medical bills are incurred, and you and I, my friend, will be saddled with unpayable medical debt. And when I say unpayable, most Americans can't even pull together $500 for an emergency. What happens when your COVID test turns out to be $6,000?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big problem. What is the I'll throw this out the boat. What is the average like household or person individual medical debt? Like, what's the average that we're looking at right now out of that 1 trillion?
Well, what we know is on credit reports, it's between $1,000 and $1,600 per person. However, only about 10% of medical debt is on credit reports.
Okay.
Even though half of all bad marks on credit reports are medical. So there's a hell of a lot on there already. It's estimated. I originally thought that it was about $75 to $80 billion that's on credit reports. But the researchers that work with us to find out whether or not medical debt actually causes people to be unwell just by itself, they've come up with about $190 billion that's on credit reports. So this is a big problem for a great number of people. It's upward to 60 million people.
Wow. 60 million people, $1 trillion of outstanding medical debt out of a $23 trillion economy. That's about 4 or 5% of the economy. So that's a big economic problem. That's a macroeconomic problem of real destructive proportions. Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It is the healthcare costs that are doing this. We're just running rampant on high costs, and it's just untenable because $200 billion each year for just the hospitals alone can't be paid. So it just keeps adding and adding and adding to this $1 trillion.
I want to ask you about that later on, too, about the cost of medical care, particularly as it gets into the context of like these big, epic, like political debates we're having over things such as the Affordable Care Act. But before I go into that, because I want to get to what you all have created, RIP or Rest in Peace medical debt. I'm assuming that's what the RIP stands for, correct? Rest in peace?
Correct. Yep.
Right. So you both were medical debt collectors at one point, so which I find fascinating. And you both had something of an epiphany. What made you get into debt relief? Now you call it, in fact, at one point you were into predatory collection. That's how you made your living. And you actually thought you were doing a good thing for doctors, for medical practitioners. But now you both call it in this column that the chief editor at the Philadelphia Citizen wrote, Roxanne Patel Shapelavi. You now refer to yourselves as predatory givers. So talk about how you made that transition from being debt collectors to debt erasers.
I want Jerry to talk about how we got into this and the collection thing, but I coined that phrase, predatory givers, because we actually get all of our information from TransUnion. And a lot of times companies use data to actually originate debt. So they look for particular people to sell to. So the way that we look at it is we are using data for good, just like TransUnion calls their data, using data for good. We're finding the people that actually need the help, and we're using data to do that.
Now, the way that it got started was actually back in the days of Occupy Wall Street. I'm sure you remember that. And Occupy Wall Street was all about, very verbally at that time, the inequities, financial, the hardships that were created by a system that obviously isn't working for everybody. And I participated in that. I brought Craig down to Zuccotti Park to show him what that was all about. And then when Occupy Wall Street dissipated, what struck us was the fact that with our backgrounds and our abilities and our understanding of the debt industry, we could sort of turn that around. We could re-engineer ourselves, and instead of being debt chasers, we'd be debt forgivers. So that was our epiphany, the idea that we could use our talents for good rather than simply making a living, so to speak.
No, I see. So explain how this works, RIP medical debt. You all now debt forgivers. You give him money. How does this work? Like how if I'm an individual that's like I've got that $1,600 worth of medical debt, how am I getting rest in peace medical debt to wipe out my medical bills?
Sure. The thing is, our particular charity abolishes debt as a random act of kindness. It's not where a person can actually come to us and say, I've got such hardships. We get those letters every day, by the way. But we have not figured a way to use our system of buying medical debt in bulk to help individuals that come to us for help. So if we buy $100 million of bills that are owed to a hospital, that 10,000 people that are in that portfolio that we buy are the ones that are going to be helped. Now, they are going to be qualified. We're not going to help people that are not qualified, so we add data to qualify them. But people just can't sign up for this, unfortunately, not yet. We'd have to have maybe about $200 billion of debt available for us to buy for us to even come close to, say, 10%, percentage chance that a person would have their debt forgiven.
Yeah,
so that's just not a high enough number.
And if I could explain how that process works, medical debt appears on a market called the debt market, where people buy and sell debt, collection agencies, for the sole purpose, of course, of mining that debt and finding profits in it. About a third of all America's hospitals will sell their medical debt, not because they're bad people, but because their fiduciary responsibility is to keep the hospital on good financial grounds. So if a hospital sells its debt to a debt buyer, it releases ownership of that debt, usually for 2, 3, maybe even as much as 4 cents on the dollar. Because for the hospital that's been trying to collect that debt for maybe even a year or two, it's relatively valueless. So they'll sell that debt, and when they do, when it goes on the debt market, that's when collection agencies begin to pursue it, not for the 3 cents on the dollar they paid, but for 100 cents on the dollar. Would you agree with that, Craig?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, nowadays, debt is not bought and sold anymore. It used to be where one company would buy it and then they'd sell it to another one, and then another one would buy it and they'd sell it to another one. Now the hospitals are saying, hey, I only want you to buy this and you can never resell it. What's good about that is that we as a charity can go buy the debt that qualifies from them. And otherwise they would be collecting on this for 3, 4, 5, 10 years.
Wow.
So we want to buy it so it stops at 2, stops at 3 years. That's it. we don't want a hardship to come to anybody else. We didn't realize we were creating hardship.
Because like the interest tacked on top of the late charges, tacked on top of penalties and other fees, like if it's constantly being resold over and over again.
Yeah, we can't have that happen, and the hospitals recognize that. But now, there's a lot of respectful ways of collecting. What's the problem is that this debt just sits there, waiting for something to happen good, like maybe someone gets an inheritance, or they win a lottery, or they just start to make money. And we would just like to get it out of that system so that people could get on with their lives and not be looking behind their backs, saying that, wonder when that $10,000 bill is going to start coming up again. When is that hospital going to place that account for collection, and I'm going to go through that whole process again with that collector? We want to stop that.
Yeah, no, exactly. You talk about the hospitals and how they're like, it's a good thing that they don't want the person who picks up the debt to resell it. But do you trust the hospitals and when you're working with them, do you feel like, okay, like you can trust that they're giving you the correct number of debt? Have you ever had issues with that? Maybe like a hospital, I don't know, inflating the debt that they're selling to you? It's not the actual number. It's because they're saying, oh, here's a buyer, so maybe we can make a few more dollars off of this. Or it's a fairly has it been a fairly
point? We haven't validated any of the accounts by going into the hospital and looking at their records. Mm-hmm. So they might be able to do that. That's a good point. There is a level of trust. We've done business with about 550 different hospitals, but we've done this through the debt buyers. Yeah. We haven't yet bought debt directly from hospitals, and that's something that we're about to do. So we've had plenty of debt, maybe $5 billion to $7 billion of debt that we could have bought at any one time. Mm-hmm. And hospitals started calling us saying, would you allow us to sell our debt or donate it to you, RIP, instead of us using the collection agency or the debt buyer? Because these accounts that should not be placed for collection. Yeah. People can't pay. They're just underwater, or they can't pay. So we are a service to them, and they're finally calling us. It's like we constantly get calls for donors. Donors call us all the time to give us money to do all this, but we hadn't until recently started getting calls from the hospitals themselves. So it's exciting to see that. Yeah. No, that's right. How are you guys making your money? Like, how are you able to make the kind of money?
I have to laugh when I hear that. When Craig and I told some of our friends, and we've been in business for years, we said, well, we've decided to start a charity, and we're going to go out and we're going to raise money, and then we're going to buy medical debt for a penny on the dollar, and then we're going to abolish it. And the usual question from them was, well, how do you make any money in that? Right. And our answer was, we're a charity. We don't make any money at that. Wow. It's not the purpose of a charity.
Well, we do now make money like a salary.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we did that.
But how are you drawing in the amount of money? Because you wiped out $2 billion worth of debt so far. So how are you? What sources are you getting this money from? Are you getting it from foundations? Are you getting it from other nonprofits? Are you getting it from small dollar individual contributions?
I'll answer that. We get our donations from other nonprofits, from foundations. A lot of corporations give us money because they're in the media business, like a radio station or a TV station will actually support us. Right. NBC, for example, supported us last year. But one of the interesting groups of the interesting nonprofits have started to help us. It's the faith-based organizations. So we've had hundreds and hundreds of faith-based organizations donate to us, and their parishioners are like, this is unbelievable. One church in Texas, I went down to visit them and go to church. Mm-hmm. The pastor said to me, this is the most important thing we did all year. I'm like, what? And it's unbelievable. The faith-based organizations abolished $500 million of debt last year. So they're really pretty amazing. And we get anywhere from $1, because $1 abolishes $100. So people know that, hey, even if I give $1, I'm going to make a difference. Or we've even gotten a $3 million donation. So it's the gamut all the way.
And I want to point out an important thing too for your radio listeners, and that is just like all politics is local, well, so's charity. Charity begins at home. So when we were contacted by different organizations, they would say, well, what debt do you have available in the Appalachians? What debt do you have available in Tacoma? What do you have available in Philadelphia? And we would go to our portfolio of debt. We would search through it, and we'd say, well, we've got $3 million worth of debt in Akron, and that would cost about, to buy it and to do a campaign, maybe about $30,000. And, well, can you imagine? So if a church is able to buy $1 million worth of debt.
That's why people and companies and nonprofits and foundations come to us, because you don't find any kind of a multiplier like that.
So that was my next question too. I was real curious about that, because you were talking about earlier about how it's kind of random. I mean, it's not like people can write to you and say, hey, listen, I've got like X amount of dollars in medical debt I need wiped out. Can you guys help? So part of it too is like, say if I'm an institution, like I'm in Philadelphia and I'm a church, and I understand a lot of people in my community, because I saw this in the Philadelphia Citizen article, you got about 1.1 million people in the Philadelphia area alone owe $631 million in medical debt. But what if I was a church and I'm like, hey, you know what? We've got a medical debt problem in Philly. Hey, let's raise some money, church, and then give it to these guys to help identify or help wipe out medical debt in Philly, or identify where that medical debt is worse in Philly, correct? So that's one way that could work.
Sure. I mean, we've had people come to us and say, I just like the most impoverished areas. Or if we have enough debt in an area, we can do that. Sometimes we need to expand the pie. We need to expand it to Delaware, and parts around, or maybe your listening area. Like your listening area isn't just Philly; it's all the outskirts of, we call the DMA, the designated market area, and that might be 10 or 12 counties, and we'll combine them all. And there's needs everywhere. It's like, I know that it matters to you that's in Philly.
Yeah.
So many people have a need. Sometimes I just say to the hospitals, let us put it where it's needed most. That might be part in Philly. That might be part in Delaware, might be part in D.C. I don't know. That's what I mean. We want to go where it's needed most, not only the local area.
Wow. No, this is fascinating. I'm hoping that folks are listening in and they're also having a chance. They're going to take a chance to read that Philadelphia Citizen piece as well, because it's got me thinking about, okay, well, what could some other institutions I know of in Philadelphia be doing as far as kind of coordinating with you guys to help Philly? But just as you said, this is a national problem. We have a lot of national audience, so I'm hoping that this kind of effort is catching fire. I'm going to have to let you both go, unfortunately, but at some point I definitely want to talk to you. We've been talking to the founders of Rest in Peace Medical Debt. That is also the title of a Philadelphia Citizen article in the Ideas We Should Steal column, and this is written by Roxanne Patel Chapellavi, my editor actually at the Philadelphia Citizen. But go check it out. Rest in Peace Medical Debt, RIP Medical Debt. A third of Americans have medical bills they cannot pay. A New York nonprofit has helped eliminate $2 billion of that debt for the poorest of them. And we've been talking to founders Craig Antico and Jerry Ashton. Go to RIP if you want to learn more about Rest in Peace Medical Debt. Go to ripmedicaldebt.org and see how you can donate today as well. Gentlemen, thank you both. Really appreciate these efforts. Thanks so much. Very insightful.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, you have a great one. Okay, we actually, we had listeners, throughout who were kind of listening in on that one. Australia, Colorado, Louisiana, North Carolina, Florida, Maine, Illinois. So the app is worldwide for sure, and people definitely listening to that last segment about Rest in Peace Medical Debt. So definitely check out ripmedicaldebt.org. This is the kind of work. that folks everywhere should be doing. And I'm looking at you, like a lot of those, various nonprofits, churches, especially in a city like ours. That's the kind of work. That's what I'm talking about. Like pulling that money together, trying to figure that out. You heard what they were saying. They got about like $500 million of debt last year. Of that debt that they helped wipe out was money given from faith-based organizations. They talking about churches out in Texas and stuff. So Philly Black clergy, what you doing? What you up to? Like, seriously, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like those collective efforts, there's power, there's true power in numbers when you come together like that. And we know a lot of people are under some severe debt, particularly in a place like Philadelphia and in the Philadelphia area. 1.1 million people in the Philadelphia area alone. That's 19% of the Philadelphia metro population, which is about 6.1 million people through the Philly metro area. And that's about 69% of the overall Philadelphia County population. Let me take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with Rosalind Daniels about kidney disease. Rosalind Daniels of Black Health Matters is going to be joining us next for a Vital Signs segment here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio. Mondays, get ready for the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith. On Tuesdays, it's Andrea Lawful Sanders. Then on Wednesdays, it's the Black Women's Leadership Council. On Thursdays, it's a second helping of Andrea Lawful Sanders. And on Fridays, it's Tiffany Bacon. Don't miss the Source. Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app. This is Word Radio, independent Black media.
Are you hungry today? Have your taste buds been sufficiently pampered? Call Eatable Delights for succulent and juicy turkey wings, no-filler crab cakes, or tender smoky beef ribs. You can pick up curbside or get delivery in Philadelphia, Montgomery, South Jersey, Delaware, and Bucks County. Call 215-236-3900 or stop by 1540 Wadsworth Avenue. That's 215-236-3900 because even your taste buds deserve pampering. And tell them Solomon Jones sent you.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back. Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app, and not just local Greater Philly area, but national and also worldwide as well. WRD worldwide. So that's why sometimes, we focus on the local, but sometimes we got to go national and global too with these conversations as well and learn about like things that are happening outside of Philly that actually Philly can learn from and apply here, like what we just talked about with RIP medical debt, right? So that's why sometimes those beyond Philly conversations are very essential because I know every now and then I get hit, people call in, we got to go local. Well, that's great. We do that. But, it's also important to, you see how important it is? You see what I'm talking about? It's important to also kind of expand our horizons and have those national conversations or find out what's happening nationwide and how it already impacts us locally in a big place like Philly, but also how it could more positively impact us or get us to better outcomes in a place like Philly. That's why that's necessary, and that's why this program, Reality Check, it's your daily dose of public affairs, and we go national all the time, and we're proud of that, and we'll continue to do that, just as we will also touch on things and give people a hard time, too, sometimes locally as well. Joining us now is Rosalind Daniels of Black Health Matters, blackhealthmatters.com for more information. He's coming back to us for a Vital Signs conversation. I want to talk about kidney disease, and actually Black Health Matters launching a new kidney disease channel where they're going to unpack that, and we're going to talk about how big of a problem that is. We got Rosalind Daniels joining us back here on Reality Check. Ms. Rosalind, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you today?
All right, hanging in there, definitely. So, first, how bad is kidney disease? Particularly when we're talking about that in the context of the Black community. What's the scope or the magnitude of kidney disease in our community?
Well, what we're finding is that it is more prevalent than one would think. And the reason is because African Americans have high rates of diabetes and hypertension. And so that often, if it's unmanaged, will automatically lead to kidney disease. And so that's why there is such a high rate within our community.
What are the first signs of, when you, beyond, kind of going to the doctor one day and getting that diagnosed and finding out you have kidney disease, are there certain telltale signs, right? So if something, I feel a certain pain that I should be worried about, and then that sort of signals that I might have kidney disease?
What we're finding, and again, I'm not a doctor, but there are certain signs such as foam in the urine. That is definitely a sign. We also know, if you maybe are just a little more achy, those are things that you might want to consider as a sign for kidney disease.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's important for people to want to check out. But definitely, if you can, you should be trying to get checked out. Is there like a specific type of screening for kidney disease? I don't know. I mean, is that something that should be standard when you get your physical, your annual physical?
Yes, there are certain tests that you will have, that you can have, because the goal is that you don't want to go into end-stage kidney disease. So what we're doing with Black Health Matters is that we've created a new health channel on kidney disease because it is very detailed, and again, the prevalence is so great within our community. Yeah. And we're also tying that into clinical trial participation. There is a new study out, and if you're interested in just learning more about it, you would go to ssgsduplex.com because, again, African Americans really don't participate in clinical studies to the degree that they should. So for a disease that does have, we don't really have an opportunity to give voice to a lot of the comorbidities that we have. Hence, that's why everyone was up in arms when COVID-19 hit, and we are dropping like flies because we have so many disease states that we're just not managing or we're not aware of. So our channel is to help raise awareness. One of the nation's, and I just wanted to share, one of the nation's experts on kidney disease is Dr. Kirk Campbell from Mount Sinai in New York, and he's going to be speaking at our upcoming Black Health Matters Summit, which is going to happen on July 18th, and it is virtual. And so it's going to be the largest, most significant health forum in the country this summer. The registration online is free. We're going to have a variety of different topics and physicians from all over the country talking about African American health from a very passionate perspective that only Black Health Matters can help produce for our community.
Thank you for that too. That kidney disease channel, is that going to be online on the blackhealthmatters.com website, or is it through, like, how are you creating this channel? Like, what are the platforms that it's going to be housed on?
Absolutely. So if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see that we'll have information on the kidney disease channel. And if you come to Black Health Matters, you'll see that we have a variety of different articles on it. And so we're really excited because in August, we're going to actually do a cooking demonstration with Chef Aaron McCargo. So you know what I know. We love to eat, right? And when it comes to for the summer, who doesn't want barbecue and, all those goodies? So Chef Aaron McCargo comes from the Food Network. He actually lives in Camden, and he knows that many people in his family have kidney disease. So he's devoted a lot of his time and work to developing a list of recipes that people who have kidney disease can actually eat. So in terms of his impact, if he does a cooking demo, which he does like very often on Friday afternoons, he can get something like 70 people to view his cooking demo. So he's going to spend an afternoon with us, talking about great recipes that you can eat and that are easy on the kidneys but have flavor and they taste really good. So that's going to be in August. So we'll make sure to send more information.
Please do. Yeah, talk to me about that a little bit too. You just mentioned a few seconds ago about different foods, different types of things that we take in that are tough on our kidneys. Speak to that a little bit. Like, what should we be careful of in terms of our diet and when we're talking about the health of our kidneys? Because we don't think about, our kidneys enough. We know that they're there, but we don't think about. I know one thing you don't want to drink too much, right? I mean, that could be a strain on your kidneys, and that's what we. But then that's something that's interesting that you mentioned, because I don't think many people are aware. There's certain foods that you have to watch out for, or you have to watch out for eating too much. Like, what are those foods?
Well, what we want to know, one thing you have to be cognizant of is your salt intake.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't, and we tend to keep that salt shaker on our tables, and maybe we just don't need it. So what we want to make sure is that we find ways to inject flavor into our food without having to dose it with salt.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Roz.
No. But that's definitely one of the messages. And so he is going to come up with great recipes, and you'll find these great recipes on Black Health Matters, such as herb roasted chicken breast or pesto crusted catfish, which are very flavorful. So those are things that he will highlight.
That's right. I tell people that all the time, and thank God for my wife for turning me on to this over the years, and just being like a big fan of her cooking, and she being from the Caribbean as well. But like, we don't use any salt at all. Like, she just uses salt. I mean, every now and then, you use like the jerk seasoning or like curry seasoning, and just maybe a sprinkle right now and then. Like, she did like this crab and mussels boil a while back. You use a little Old Bay, right? And that's got sodium in it, but we just don't use salt. A lot of lemon, a lot of cilantro, a lot of different peppers. You know what I mean? I mean, there's just so many things that are flavorful that have kind of this natural seasony taste. Basil, thyme. She uses this stuff all the time. Just yesterday, and like, finally, just kind of keeping the physical distancing, but just had an aunt and uncle over, older aunt and uncle, and fixed some food for them, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good!" And they do have a habit of eating salty foods.
Right.
No salt in that. And they were amazed that the food had like no salt in it, because they were asking like about the ingredients and stuff. They were amazed by it. It is possible not to use salt. It's very, very possible. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rosalind.
No. But you're right. I mean, so, certain cultures will have an edge because they know how to inject that flavor without using all that sodium. So that is so important. I mean, also, you can marinate your food so that you don't have to use salt once you get it to the table. So I'm sure your wife can talk to that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And use a lot of olive oil, from time to time. So yeah, I just I don't want us to get too far off into it looks like we're getting ready to create a food network now. So, but yeah, I mean, it's over the years, it's maybe become like a lot more. I mean, not to say like I love like my. When I grew up, and the good thing is I did grow up with healthy cooking, but I did notice, we use a little, but it was a thing too, even back when I was growing up, don't use a whole lot of salt. So, good, at least my family from the South, my grandmother especially, had sense enough to know like this is, and so, everyone would maintain pretty good optimal health, even though, you'd still, back in the day, salt was, hey, some seasoning, you put it on there. But we knew that was a no-no. That was like a red alert as far as that salt. When we talk about kidney disease as well, Rosalind, is it more behavioral? Is it more environmental, more genetic? I mean, how do we kind of classify kidney disease in terms of the root causes?
Well, again, touching on the social determinants of health, and we're very big into policy right now because it's so interlinked into what happens. But yes, again, if you're unmanaging certain diseases, it could possibly lead to chronic kidney disease. And, so often we take our bodies for granted, and we don't realize that we have to, if we are dealt with a situation where we do have other diseases, if you manage them, you may not have, something that's going to link to something else. So, we want to be aware and be as proactive as possible. But your kidneys will manage your electrolytes within your body. It manages the amount of fluid within your body. It helps to maintain your blood pressure. So there are many reasons why you want to make sure that your kidney is healthy and functioning.
Yeah, no, that's so that is just so essential. Like, you know, people just need to hear that. You know, last question too, Rosalind, just kind of because you are, you know, you do Black Health Matters and you've been watching the pandemic, COVID-19, real closely. Are we talking enough? I was just talking about this the other day. I've talked about it a few times already. I don't feel like we're talking enough about the people who recovered from COVID-19. And the reason I say that is because I want to hear more from those folks about, and I feel like the more people out there hear about how destructive this virus is, even if you do recover from it, like your body is wrecked. I mean, your lungs, for example, are wrecked after having COVID-19. It's like a lifetime of issues after having it. I feel like if more people heard that, I think more people would be like a lot more aware and cognizant of things like, you know what, wear your mask when you're out in public and just do some of the basic precautions when you're out in public. Do you have that same feeling, Rosalind, or you feel like?
I honestly do. We've interviewed doctors. You know, we do our Facebook Live. And what they say is that once you have COVID-19, it loves the lungs. And it literally leaves so much scar tissue that it's very hard for that lung to heal. So you're not going to really just jump up the next day and feel like yourself, especially if you're a person of a certain age. The way he explained it to us is your body is doing battle. So just like if you were in a war, you know, there would be mines left, there would be traps left, there would be, you know, destruction. That's how your lungs are left after having COVID-19. Why people are not really emphasizing that, it's just something you're just not going to kick. If you're fortunate enough to survive COVID, because you just don't know, and that's why, again, there's this rush on ventilators, you most likely will have some type of residual damage. And we're seeing that from people of all ages. There was an article about a young woman in the New York Times. She was in great health. She was a runner. And then, you know, she was running miles one day, boom, and got COVID and was out, you know, was really sick, was in a hospital. She said, the doctor said, I wish I could help you. I can't, you know, there's not much that can be done. So she was able to, you know, get on the mend. She's, you know, back at home. She's working. But she went from being able to run miles when she felt like it to needing 2 inhalers, emergency inhalers, so that she can walk 3 blocks. So, yes, we have control. Those masks, they are unattractive. They can be unattractive. They are, you know, they're hard to make sure that you get them around the ear, but it just makes so much sense to wear them. I see people with the mask over their mouth and their nose is open. Get it right. If you're going to put it on, wear it right.
Yeah, cut that out, please, folks. I was like, come on. No, I appreciate you saying that, Rosalind. So we should, and definitely we'll get you back on next time. We'll talk more about that. We've been talking with Rosalind Daniels, founder and chief publisher editor for Black Health Matters. Go to blackhealthmatters.com. Occasionally she joins us here on Vital Signs, on our Vital Signs segment here on Reality Check WURD. Rosalind, always good to talk with you. Really appreciate your time in this new kidney disease channel. So we'll continue to put word out there about that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You take care. Be safe out there. Be healthy. Okay, let's take a break, and phone lines are open now at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. Start saving more for retirement now, so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings now at aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
A message brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
PECO has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. Have an old working fridge or freezer in your garage or basement? PECO will pick it up, dispose of it responsibly, and give you a $75 rebate. That's right, $75. Plus, you can save as much as $150 a year on your energy bill by getting rid of it. Just schedule your pickup at PECO.com/recycling or call 1-888-5-PECO-SAVE today. Be sure your fridge or freezer is plugged in and working at time of pickup.
Support independent black media and join the onWURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. The latest reality check column, written by myself, yours truly, is Cracking the Youth Voter Code. Want to get more young protesters casting a vote? Start by taking them seriously. So we lay out a number of practical, low-hanging fruit ways to get young people voting. One of the more prominent ways is to pay them. Pay them in a number of ways. I'm not saying pay, like outright pay them to go to the polls and vote. But it's real interesting. I'm going to ask her about this next week. Philadelphia City Commissioner Lisa Daly, because she mentioned in passing last time we had her on about a student poll worker program where they were Philadelphia City Commissioner's office actively recruiting high school age people in Philadelphia to work at the polling stations or precincts. You go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com, there is nothing there about that. Nothing there about that. These are paid positions, folks. And it's a big problem that the vast majority of people who are stationed at polling precincts who are working as elections judges are people over the age of 61, vast majority. And there's a big crisis there. There's not enough people working there's a shortage of people willing to work. But, when you have cities like Philadelphia not making that effort to put the word out and say, hey, listen, we've got these positions open. We have the budget. We will pay you to do it. And especially as high as like the youth unemployment rate is in general, whether that's nationally or in a city like Philly, because I went to other cities. I went to Los Angeles. I went to San Diego. I saw it in San Francisco, Oakland. They have prominently displayed on their websites. They have dedicated pages, student poll worker program for high school students on, and letting them know these are paid positions. And it's like, come on, like take this thing seriously, and get more young. And that's one of the things that could really get young people excited and get them plugged into the process. And also give them the signal that we as adults, particularly adults who work in these kinds of spaces, are taking them seriously. So we think it's just like, I know earlier on, I know a caller was saying we just need to get more celebrities out there, and that's all fine and dandy. But sometimes I'm like, I cringe. And although I will say, I think LeBron James, that's my man, that's my guy. He's getting the work done. He's putting his money where his mouth is into a big voter mobilization effort, and I appreciate that. And he got himself educated, because a lot of times these celebrities, they aren't educated about the political process, and then they say the most asinine and idiotic things about political process, where they say things, or you find out they're not registered to vote. It's like I'm kind of leery about getting celebrities, particularly black celebrities, too involved and putting out messaging about get out to vote if they're not registered themselves, or they aren't properly schooled on at least the basics, the fundamentals of electoral process, so they can have those conversations with young people. And we've oftentimes find that becomes an issue, it becomes a problem, or they're like Colin Kaepernick, they're kneeling, they're making these big political statements, but then you're not registered to vote, and then you're making these really destructive, dangerous statements about like not voting. And so, and that's become a problem. And, and kids, impressionable young black kids are following that. And then you have a situation like the last 2016 election where young black voters were the most likely not to vote compared to all the other youth voter demographics. White young voter participation went up. by 5 percentage points in 2016. Latino youth voter participation went up by about the same amount in 2016. Asian youth voter participation went up in 2016. Guess who's went down? The only youth voter demographic that went down and dropped by 6 percentage points, Black youth voters. And that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. You know, that's not something to be proud of at all. So it's like, to the point, it's like, yeah, you want to get like more big, high profile figures, but it's like now it's like, it's not simply having a big concert or having these talks and forums and town halls and protests for kids. Like, take them seriously and pay them for their time. We had Blue Future on last week. 10-week program for 16 to 24-year-olds, teaching them electoral process, campaign management. Got a lot of black young people in that program. They give them $1,000 stipend for 10 weeks. I would love that to be universal. If I had the money, I'd be putting my money on that. You know, those are the kinds of things that like we need to be doing, and really getting young people, if you really want to get them involved. And I go into a bit of that in that reality check column. I'm sorry, let me go to Brenda out of South Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Brenda?
Good morning, Charles. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
I miss you at the end of the day, because during the middle of the day I have to work. But I wanted to call. I was listening. Great topic about Black health. So that's really why I wanted to call, that miss you at the end of the day, because it really fitted more into my lifestyle.
Well, we miss you too.
But I'm home unemployed, like the 40 million, so I can listen to you. But I wanted to say that that should be permanent, the focus on Black health. And then also your guest talking about medical debt. That kind of organization could also be available for college debt as well.
That's right.
Yeah, I was listening to him. So, yeah, you need to make that also permanent, too, because debt is huge in this country.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, and, you know, one other point I wanted to ask you, your thoughts on the Insider story. They were interviewing Larry Pratt about the systemic racism at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I don't know if you read his piece.
I'd have, in the Philadelphia Citizen, and I think we talked about it. I think briefly we touched on it. I think we're going to get him on, if not next week. You know, he comes on at least once a month. We talk about different things he's written about.
But I was just glad and surprised that on TV they're talking about the racism at the local newspapers. That's what I was really surprised that here it is, you have a local TV station talking about the racism, and they named the Philadelphia, even though the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News are owned by the same people. But at least they were calling them out. And then earlier you were talking about the how the Philadelphia Inquirer, with their bias, chose to focus on the 40. And so I said, they need to be called out, and I'm just so glad. Now, the point is anybody over there listening? You know what I'm saying?
Right. It makes me like, you know, and I've written a couple of times for the Inquirer. I'm struggling with it right now, like especially after, you know, recent events. And the editor reached out to me and said, hey, you know, would you like to contribute something? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, looking at kind of like the behavior of publications like the New York Times and Philly Inquirer. I'm still like on the fence about that. I write the local paper I write for regularly is a Philadelphia Citizen. I'm in there almost every week. I have not seen that kind of, they're very open-minded, and they're very focused on exposing these equity gaps and having honest conversations with all audiences about things like systemic racism. And they provide me with that platform to have that conversation. And it's not a Black-owned publication. It's a white-run publication, but I feel comfortable when I do that. So yeah, I mean, you know, publications like the Philly Inquirer, they have a lot of work to do.
They do.
I was just angry, like when I saw, like, you know, it wasn't specifically about race, But everything is about racism now. Honestly, it always has been. And this election, as the 2016 election, is about us. Let's be frank. This is about us, right? That's why you cannot believe those polls any day saying, "Oh, Joe Biden is ahead." Do not fall for these. Do not fall for these folks saying, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump again." No, because it's about racism. It's about people. It was a let's thumb our nose at let's control and keep the black folks down. So this guy's going to do it for us. That's what that's about, and we have to be worried. And so you have publications like the Philly Inquirer, and occasionally they feed into that. It's like you want to spend 2,000 words or close to it on a column about nothing. A whole ballot, you want to focus on 40 ballots? Are you kidding me? And sure enough, what happened? Now the Republican Party has filed a lawsuit, used that same article to now as proof to disenfranchise us, because that's exactly what the Trump campaign and the Republican Party are trying to do by getting rid of mail-in balloting. It is about, oh wow, this mail-in balloting thing is working, and we need to figure out a way to keep black voters away from those polls. That's what that's about. That's what that's about. So it's like, to me, articles like that is racist, because then it feeds into an activated effort to take the voting franchise away from us. That's racism. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, the Philly Inquirer has a big problem with that. And I took that report on, and we had a little exchange on Twitter. And, he's embarrassed now because he's like, because I told him through 2 weeks ago, I was like, dude, they are going to use this. Why did you? He's like, I don't think I made a big deal out of it. I'm like, look at the headline. If you didn't, your editor sure did. That's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that, and just being self-aware, or, have black editors. Right? Get black editors, people that come from they refuse to do that. Get more black. It's not just about getting more black reporters and staff writers, because then you get more black staff writers and reporters in institutions like a New York Times or a Philly Inquirer or elsewhere, but then they have white bosses who hold them down, who won't let them write from their perspective or write what they need to write. Right? So you need those black folks in leadership positions. And then you need the black folks in leadership positions, they need to act right. Because the New York Times executive editor, he's a brother. And he didn't act right in 2016. And he's still a lot of time. And then he did the 1619 thing that gets to make up for it. It's you need to make sure that across the board, you are hiring, you're putting your folks in leadership positions, that the New York Times, Philly Inquirer, to me, Philly Inquirer represents a city that is 44% black. 44. So you should have 44% black staff. And you should have 44% black editors and black leadership at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I mean, it's just, to me, that's the math is simple on that. In any of these big mainstream publications or mainstream outlets, so-called mainstream outlets, represent your cities, represent your populations that you report for and you report on. That's, to me, that's a no-brainer. That's a simple it's good business. It's a good business model. It really is. I mean, it's beyond the race thing. It's just a good business. It's then oh, okay, Philly Inquirer is they hiring us. They are actually giving us about, yeah, okay, you got to kind of come from the white perspective, the white people in the population you have to represent, Latino, but you know what? They are actually making an effort. And they still not, it's we're still not getting an indication that they're making that full effort. And it's not just them, it's everywhere. It just permeates journalism, American journalism culture. It's insidious. And it has to stop. And they know. And I've been going on at it for years. And, they're acting like they're just now becoming aware of it. I've been going at this for years, particularly as someone who's a former political strategist, worked in the political field, is in political media. And, it was something we used to talk about, with black political consultants like myself, not being included on panels or discussions on cable TV. We had that fight for years. They finally started kind of coming around a little bit on that. You have all white panels talking about elections and the black vote. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so, we'll continue to have a conversation about it and highlight it. And they know what they're doing. They act stupid when you call them out. No, you know what you're doing. You know you're wrong. Stop faking like you just found out. Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Appreciate you calling that out, and we'll continue to talk about it. All right. That wraps this Wednesday midweek discussion or edition of Reality Check. We're going to the source. The Black Women's Leadership Council is up next on WURD, so continue to listen in. And in the meantime, appreciate Troy Wilmore and his work in the back end, behind the scenes of the board is still. Thank him. And Philly wants you to stay sharp, stay smart, but please stay safe out there. We're over 200 homicides in Philadelphia now. Philly, you got it. Please keep safe, but y'all got to do something right, because that's not good. All right. But we'll talk more about that too tomorrow in our Thursday edition tomorrow here on WURD. Have a great afternoon. Have a good evening. I'll talk to you then.